Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive, presented by Prize Picks. Got a nice little three-game NBA DFS slate tonight, some playoff action, so it should be a good one. And we're joined by the perfect guy to help us break these games down, Adam. Should my money share. Adam, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty well. Enjoying playoff basketball. It's nice to have games that matter every night, and Brooklyn and Boston always, um, should be a good game. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I can't believe that Brooklyn tried to get that two seed, or sorry, the other way around. Boston try to get that two seed. I think sometimes it's good to tank a little bit. Like, what did you make of that decision at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think for the most part, like, because you didn't know where Brooklyn was necessarily going to finish. But it's not like you could get the one seed. So yeah, I was kind of surprised. It kind of sucks for like whoever did fall into the two seed, just because you're not supposed to be playing Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the first round.
Yeah, that is a crazy one. So, fortunately, as fans of the game, we get to see some great playoff matchups right from the first round. So that one should be a fun one. We also got Chicago and Milwaukee, as well as Philadelphia and Toronto on tonight's slate. Now, we've gone through a few days of playoff slates so far. What have been your takeaways?
Um, it's very difficult to find good value, and I think that was to be expected. But we've certainly seen that play out where teams are running more condensed rotations, so you're not getting there's not as many options for value. But then also the another result of that is not only are there fewer cheap guys in the rotation, but you're talking about the main stars, the main usage guys playing more minutes. So cheap guys like PJ Tucker, Danny Green, guys like that, they're also going to be less involved from a production standpoint than they typically are because they're playing even more minutes alongside the stars. So that can make it tough. I think that you've been able to get away with balanced lineups a bit more in the postseason than you could during the regular season. Tonight, that'll be kind of difficult because you do have Embiid and Giannis on the slate, not to mention the guys from Brooklyn. But in general, I think going balanced has just been a little bit more palatable than normal.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it is tough to go bargain bin hunting. So, you did mention Danny Green. I mean, with Matisse Thybulle off the or he's not vaccinated, so he can't play in Canada. So he's out for tonight's game, and everyone's on Danny Green tonight. I thought that was like particularly amusing. Looking at our ownership projections on Awesemo.com, because I feel like Danny Green, like the whole regular season, like nobody plays this guy, and now everyone's like lining up out the door to get Danny Green. What do you
Yeah,
think?
definitely going to be a big part of tonight's slate, just in terms of kind of dictating if it's going to be a high scoring slate, because that's where a lot of people are going to go in order to get to Giannis or Durant or Embiid or whoever they want to pay up for. So, if you get a bad Danny Green game, it's going to probably be a pretty low scoring slate. If you get a good Danny Green game, it's going to be higher scoring. So, I think he's going to have a pretty big impact on it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Is sometimes when you get that high owned guy, like obviously you can't win the slate by having him because like so many other people have him. And oftentimes it just like raises the cash line if he does really well and doesn't really help you. Of course, like if you fade him, uh he does well, like you're pretty much toast if you're going with a contrarian pick. But what I found in situations like that is kind of like what you're saying is if like you can also go balanced, and then like if Danny Green like has a decent game but not a great one, you're still going to have a pretty good shot because everyone in your lineup is going to be like different than those Danny Green lineups. So is that a strategy you try to use in playoffs to kind of get away from the field? Is do a little bit different with the lineup construction compared to the field?
Yeah, like I think it's a little bit more difficult on a slate like this because there are so many good payoff options. But in general, yeah, because it kind of gives you like multiple outs, for lack of a better phrase. Like if you go with a lineup where you're using basically the same roster construction as most of the field, and then let's say like instead of Danny Green, you play Kobe White or something. Just he's the first name that I saw in terms of salary that's close to Green. That's fine. Like I think that's a decent approach. But what also happens is you're basically if Danny Green beats Kobe White, you kind of can't win because you have such a similar roster construction to everybody else. Whereas if you were to just get out of that price range, Danny Green can do pretty well, but then you also have, let's say for one reason or another, Giannis has a disappointing game, or Embiid, or both have disappointing games. You can win that way as well. Like last night, for example, Karl Anthony Towns had a bad game, and so if you went balanced, it didn't even really matter that much what the value pieces ended up doing. What PJ Tucker ended up with, because people used PJ Tucker to get to Karl Anthony Towns, and he sucked. So like you win that way as well.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of it, like, there's two ways to be contrarian. It's like you pick the guys that are low owned, or you kind of like build a lineup that is hard to put together. So I think that'll be a factor tonight. Before we get into the games breakdown here, guys, if you could hit the like button, that gives me and Adam the positive feedback we need to be able to give you the winning picks. And make sure to also hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. That lets you know when we go live, and we'll be on your feed. A ton of good DFS content across different sports. So make sure to hit that and the notification bell if you want to get that in your notifications. Our first game, we got a good one, Brooklyn at Boston. Brooklyn is a 3.5-point underdog here. So it seems like the sports books are thinking these teams are pretty evenly matched. Is that kind of your feeling? It's just kind of like, I know Boston won game one, but do you feel like these teams are pretty equal in skill level?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I expect this to be this series to go down to the wire. I think that the closing line, I think, was like Brooklyn plus 110 for the series. Made sense to me. Like I didn't think either of these teams should really be heavy favorites. Last game, literally came down to the final possession of the game with Jason Tatum making the game-winning layup as well. So yeah, I think that I think they're very evenly matched teams.
Yeah, and then we got Ben Simmons coming back game four, so that like it's hard to like believe that he could really like turn the tide in the series, not having played this year, but that could be an interesting factor. But let's start with Brooklyn. So everyone is kind of looking at Nick Claxton as the hot hand as far as value pieces. He played almost 30, or he played 30 minutes in game one in the or the last game of the season. Or wait, no, this is the play-in game. He played 28 minutes. Meanwhile, Andre Drummond played 17 and 19 minutes. So is Nick Claxton, like, can we count on him for that kind of run again? Or is it just kind of like he was playing better, so he got a little bit more minutes those games?
I expect him to play a lot. I think he's just a better fit than Drummond in the postseason. The only question, the bigger question to me with Claxton doesn't even really have to do with Drummond. Like, I think that there's a chance you start seeing neither of them on the floor. Last game you still got close to 48 minutes from them. That doesn't have to happen. Like, you can get a closing lineup that has either Goran Dragic or Patty Mills in there instead, alongside Curry, Brown, Kyrie, and Durant, and that would work perfectly fine here as well. So that's the only like minor concern I have is maybe does Brooklyn start playing a little bit smaller? But as long as Claxton's playing well, I don't necessarily think they'll go there. And he's I think he's more likely to close than Andre Drummond is.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. Like I'm a little bit worried because like throughout the season it really went back and forth who they go to on center. Like I think LaMarcus Aldridge, like everyone is kind of thinking like he hasn't played it very much recently, but I'm kind of wondering like he could be that guy that comes in and plays like 8 minutes and just screws everyone over. Like what kind of chance do you think that LaMarcus Aldridge or maybe even Blake Griffin would play?
I mean, I think it's pretty low. It's certainly higher than zero, but yeah, I mean, it's not something I'm overly concerned about. Like I'd be again, like I think it's more likely if Claxton and Drummond don't combine for 48 minutes, I think it's more likely that you just get some small lineups than that they throw Griffin or Aldridge in.
Okay, cool. With that in mind, like Nick Claxton's 4,700. I'm kind of thinking he's going to be popular given that he played the 30 minutes last game. Is that a buy or a sell for you?
I think the price is pretty appropriate. Like if you give him around 28 minutes, he kind of just looks like he's priced where he should be. We have him getting 13% ownership on DraftKings. To me, that's reasonable. It is only a 3-game slate. He is still relatively inexpensive, but the price tag came up enough where he's not really standing out to me at that price.
Nice. All right, let's look at the rest of the team. One guy that is particularly well priced is Seth Curry. And I think in playoff slates, we're really looking at the guys that are like starters because they're kind of guaranteed to get like a decent run. And he's only 4,500 on TK. That being said, he's not like the most productive player, and it doesn't seem like they're really giving him a ton of minutes in the postseason. This is kind of his normal minutes share. So, how confident do you feel going to Seth Curry here?
Not too confident because for one, like he's not obviously he's playing with Durant and Kyrie and they're going to dominate usage, but we know Curry's playing through a pretty significant injury as well. So I think that's why he's not playing more minutes, and it does just make him a little bit riskier. So if you assume he's getting around 30 minutes at 4,500, certainly playable, but not somebody that I'm very confident in, not somebody that I think is necessarily underpriced. It's more so he'll just land in a lineup here or there because he is so cheap.
Yeah, definitely. If he appears in some lineups, I'm not gonna be like trying to change it, but not the most exciting option. One guy that's kind of popping in value, I'm a little bit surprised by, is Bruce Brown. Uh, he's been playing monster minutes recently, topping 30 in the last 4 games, or actually more than that. But in the last game, he played about 36 minutes. Prior to that, he played 40. So it seems like Bruce Brown somehow has become a key cog in this Nets rotation. He's 6K. That price in the regular season seems high, but it's playoffs, so he's getting these crazy minutes. Like, do you expect that to continue, and what do you make of the price?
Yeah, I expect Brown to play a lot. I think he's like behind Kyrie and Durant, he's the guy that I feel the most confident in his playing time, and he's not a bad point per minute guy. The one concern I would have is, kind of like I was saying earlier, when you're getting Durant and Irving playing almost the entire game, it does have a negative impact on usage. And last game, you had like a 6% usage rate for Bruce Brown. I don't expect it to be that low again, but he is certainly somebody that you're relying on to get some rebounds, get some defensive stats, and kind of get there in terms of peripherals more so than scoring typically. But at 6K, assuming he's going to play north of 36 minutes, I do think, especially if you are going with a more balanced build, that can be a pretty useful spot just based on how many minutes he's likely to play.
Agreed. I'm going to be like playing him for sure. Like, but the guy that I'm kind of like, I don't know about this, but I think the minutes and the price point are fine. And then of course, KD, one of the best players in the NBA, and he's 10K, which a notable price discount from regular season. And then Kyrie is 9,900. That does seem to be like way too close between the two. Like, so I definitely lean KD between those two by a pretty hefty margin. What do you think?
Yeah, so do I. I mean, Kyrie obviously coming off of the massive game in game one. Durant shot very poorly, didn't have as good of a game. But Durant still had a 33% usage rate to Kyrie's 29%. You got 42 minutes from Kyrie, you got 41 from Durant. So I do lean Durant, and he's not getting that much ownership at 12%. But it is also worth noting that right now we only have Kyrie projected for 4.5% ownership. I understand why, because but like you said, he's too close in price to Durant, and he's really not that far off from guys like Embiid or Giannis either. But on a 3-game slate, somebody that very clearly is capable of going for 60 plus fantasy points because he did it in game one at 5% ownership is always going to be at least somewhat appealing.
Oh, that's surprising to me because he's going up against the defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart. Does that matchup scare you at all?
I mean, the matchup as a whole scares me. Like Boston defensively is just really, really good, and that was one takeaway from game one too. Is Boston was able to get away with playing extremely physical on Kevin Durant. Like coming off screens and everything, and really just not giving him any space. If they're able to keep doing that, I think you're going to see a pretty difficult series for Durant. But again, there's no guarantee that happens. And if Durant does get the whistle in this game, then you're probably looking at a very, very strong game from Durant.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I guess I was trying to get you to give a take like Josh was giving on the show the other day about Marcus Smart winning Defensive Player of the Year, but you didn't
I didn't see what
play
he said.
here. Well, anyway, let's go to the Boston side. So, one last question: Andre Drummond, like contrarian, or is that just too risky?
I mean, if you wanted to make the case, like I guess the bull case for Andre Drummond would be that, like for example, in the second quarter last game, he subbed out because of fouls. So with like 5 minutes to go in the half, so if he doesn't foul there, let's say he gets those extra 5 minutes instead of Claxton, and I don't know, let's say he plays well and isn't being a defensive liability. I don't really know how that happens, but maybe it does. Like I guess at 5,500, like he's such a good point per minute guy that if he did happen to get 22 minutes, which would basically last game have just been closing out the first half, he can get there. But I still just don't have a lot of confidence in it. I think I'm actually a little bit more interested in Dragic at 4K. He got 26 minutes last game. I'd mentioned before I wouldn't be shocked if you did see him in the closing lineup. He closed the first half. I think he could potentially, if they go small, be in the closing lineup here. But not a bad point per minute guy, and at only 4K and 11% ownership, I'm kind of interested in Dragic.
Nice. Yeah. One thing to note with Dragic is he had some sort of illness at the end of the regular season, right? So that's kind of like why he hadn't played that many minutes to close it out.
Yeah, I think he was on the COVID list or something.
Yeah. So if you're looking at the box scores, don't let that scare you off, because I think there were some circumstances around that. We got a couple of super chats. Thanks, my filler Arc, for a couple of super chats. He says, Adam, out of the cheap guys, Niang, Dragic, or Claxton? And then is Shake Milton a thing because Thibault is out?
So out of the cheap guys, I Claxton and Dragic are pretty close to me, given that that Claxton's a little bit more expensive. I have a hard time viewing Niang as anything more than just like a dart throw and hope to get lucky, like hope Danny Green turns his ankle or something. But and as far as Milton goes, I'm not. Matisse Thybulle being out, and obviously we'll talk about this more with Philadelphia, but Matisse Thybulle being out opens the door for guys like Shake Milton or Niang to potentially get there. Like their chances of getting more run and having a good game increase with Thybulle being out, just because that's one less guy ahead of them in the rotation. But from a median standpoint, I still don't think it does a whole lot for them because, for example, last game Thybulle only played 10 minutes, and you got like 34 from Danny Green. So assuming Danny Green doesn't get in foul trouble, doesn't get injured, and plays like 36 minutes, I don't expect Milton or Niang to take on like some massive role with Thybulle out.
Yeah. Shake Milton really hasn't played that much since James Harden joined the team. So it does seem like they've been pretty hesitant to play him on the court at the same time as Tyrese Maxey. So I'm kind of wondering, like, oh my gosh, like, how do you think that Korkmaz is going to get any run? Like, it's hard to know, like, if any guy is going to join the rotation, since they'd have to dig kind of deep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like maybe Korkmaz just takes those 10 minutes, or you give an extra 5 to Niang or even 10 to Niang and he gets up to like 18. Yeah, like I think it's a good question. Do they just eliminate Thybulle's spot in the rotation, or do they, replace him with Korkmaz? But either way, like barring Danny Green for some reason not playing his normal minutes, I don't really think that there's enough minutes vacated by Thybulle to really make a huge difference.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get to that game in greater detail as we go along here. Okay, I'm Boston. One of the really surprising things in game one is Al Horford played 41 minutes, which really kind of negated value from some of the other guys like Grant Williams and Daniel Tice, who are also the bigs in the rotation. I'm really surprised he played 41 minutes, like given that he's a big and his age, but he looks like a monster value at 6,400 if he gets that same kind of run. How are you handling Al Horford?
Yeah, I mean Boston in general, but Horford at 6,400, I do think is a little bit underpriced. I mean, you're talking about basically a fantasy point per minute guy. Obviously, they want him out there for defensive reasons, and if he physically is able to play 40 plus minutes, there's no real reason why they wouldn't want him to, especially for as long as Robert Williams is sidelined. So, I don't think you can project 41 and a half minutes from Horford again, but even if you give him like 37, 38, knowing that there's the potential for him to play a little bit more, he's still going to project like a pretty strong value at 6,400.
Nice. We got a super chat from Aiden. Thank you, Aiden. He says, Boucher, Harden, and Connaughton, or Harris, Anunoby, and Carter. I feel like is Carter Javon Carter?
Who's
Because
Carter?
Javon Carter, like I feel like he's not playable in DFS. But he got like 12 minutes or something in game one. I don't know. Is
Yeah,
there another
but like
Carter?
it's weird because that if I feel like the salary doesn't match there. Like you have Harden on one side and then nobody expensive on the Carter side. But assuming I'm not like just blanking on who Carter is, then it is Javon Carter, then the one that doesn't have Javon Carter.
Yeah, you're good. All right, so hopefully that helps. Um, okay, so for Boston, like obviously really strong game one. The values on these guys, Jalen Brown, Tatum, and Smart all show as above 5x. And when it came to minutes, Smart like played fewer minutes than you might expect at 36. And then Tatum played 45. Brown played 40. So would you expect similar minutes again today, or like that seems like a odd rotation where you might expect Smart to play a little bit more as well as Jalen Brown possibly playing more. So what do you think they're doing with the
Yeah,
Boston
like
rotation?
I mean, I think on average you probably see a little bit less from Tatum as far as probably doesn't play 45 minutes. Maybe he plays like 40 to 42. And I think you certainly could see a little bit more from Smart, like you were saying. Only playing 36 minutes when Horford plays 41 and Brown plays 40 and Tatum plays 45 is kind of strange. So wouldn't be surprising if you did see a little bit more playing time from Smart. I think that Tatum and Brown, end up around 40 to 42. I would say expecting like 37, 38 from Smart and Horford makes sense.
Nice. So they actually did run a really condensed rotation the other game. So Tice, we're expecting to get the start again. But at 4,400, he's not really that productive. I don't know if he's a great DFS play. And then Grant Williams and Derek White also getting like reasonable minutes, but neither stand out a ton other than the fact that Grant Williams at 3,600, like I feel like that's a guy that like you can at least count on to be on the court a good amount for 3,600. How do these guys stack up as far as value pieces tonight?
Yes, I mean we saw like 20 minutes from Daniel Tice last game. Maybe he plays a little bit more here, but I don't feel particularly confident in that. I think that the closing lineup is going to be exactly what we saw last game, where Derek White closes in place of Daniel Tice. So it's pretty tough for me to feel confident about him. Grant Williams at 3,600 is sort of interesting to me. If you are going with like a similar lineup build, but you're trying to save ownership off of Danny Green, I don't hate taking a shot on Grant Williams. Like he clearly doesn't project as well as Green, since you're expecting Green to play into the mid to upper 30s and Williams not to. But Williams is a good player that basically, if anything happens to anybody ahead of him in the rotation, basically whether it's foul trouble, injury, whatever it may be, Williams basically just moves into the lineup because guys on Boston can play so many different positions. Basically if anybody gets in foul trouble or gets hurt, it's either Derek White or Grant Williams stepping up. So there is a path to Williams getting enough minutes to be a good play at 3,600. It's just not as clear as it is for somebody like Danny Green.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. All right. Before we get to the next game, I want to mention all the tools we have on the site, which can really help you dominate these NBA DFS contests. We cover like pretty much every sport, and you can get the full site pass for $29.95 a week. Player projections for every sport, ownership projections. For NBA, we got the boom bust tool, which really helps you compare the probability a player is going to go off with their ownership. That one's key. Lineup builder and a lot more. And then our NBA passes are $4.95 a week for Express, or $16 for the premium. So guys, make sure to check those out. All right. Game 2, we got Philadelphia at Toronto. Philadelphia is a 1.5 point favorite. And we mentioned Matisse Thybulle unable to play because of the Canadian laws about COVID vaccines. So I think that's really the only injury tonight that really stands out as significant. So Like how much are you gonna adapt to your lineup building process because of this Matisse Thybulle injury?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it before, but like I don't think on average, I don't think it has like a massive impact just because of how the rotation went last game, where Thibault played 10 minutes and 27 seconds. Like Niang played 9 minutes, Milton played about 14. If you give, like, obviously, if you give Thibault's minutes to Milton and he plays 24, that would matter. But like if Niang plays 19 minutes instead of 9, he's playable, but it's not like you're going crazy to get to him for 19 minutes. And then, like you said, you could just get somebody else added to the rotation like Korkmaz. So I don't feel very confident in any of the like other bench pieces picking up minutes. I think that it's likely that it doesn't make a huge difference, but it does solidify the playing time for Danny Green because, for example, in game one, Thibault played 18, almost 19 minutes. Green played 22 minutes. Game two, you got 10 from Thibault. You got 37 and a half from Green. Now it kind of just forces Danny Green into that role and makes you it makes you a little bit more confident in the playing time that Green's going to get. What he does with those minutes is obviously anyone's guess, but he's a 0.64 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. And while that's not very good at all, if you give him 36 minutes, you're still just talking about, on average, like a 22 to 23 point DraftKings projection.
No, yeah, like the points per minute, 0.6, yeah, not so great. And then I'm also kind of wondering how secure these minutes are. I know Danny Green's a solid defensive player, but I feel like he's like even when he used to start for the Sixers, he'd get like 26 minutes a game or something like that. So I know he played like 37 the last game. What would you expect him to average here? Like, I think there's a pretty wide range of possible minutes for him.
I think on average, he's probably getting like mid 30s, maybe a little bit lower. I think the biggest risk to Green outside of like foul trouble or injury or anything would be if like somehow Philadelphia is losing. Maybe they go to like Niang for shooting. I mean, in theory, Danny Green can shoot too, but that hasn't really been the case for a while. So I mean that would be like the biggest concern to me is like if they're playing from behind. But even then, you could certainly have Green out there as a shooter. So just based on the rotations that we've seen and the fact that Thibault's out, I do feel pretty confident in his minutes.
Nice. How do you feel about the ownership? Like, is that scaring you off at all, or are you gonna just ride with it because there aren't many $3,600 players we can really count on tonight?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the ownership makes sense to me in that like you said, there's not many $3,600 players you can count on. We'll talk about Kobe White when we get to that game. He has his own issues. Wesley Matthews is 3,200. He's an even worse point per minute guy than Danny Green is. So the ownership makes sense. But we do also have him projected to be the most over-owned player on DraftKings, 37.5% ownership, 26.5% chance of being optimal. So really it kind of just comes down to like, what are you doing with the rest of your lineup? Because anytime somebody has, a 25, 26% chance of being optimal, clearly they're a good play. And you shouldn't just look at the fact that he's over-owned and say like, oh, I'm not playing Danny Green, because it comes down, like he opens up so much other stuff in your lineups, but you're going to need to be contrarian somewhere. So it kind of just going to come down to within individual lineups, what the rest of my lineup looks like. If I have a bunch of chalky guys, then maybe I'll play Kobe White, or maybe I'll just get out of that price range in general. Whereas if I've, made a contrarian play elsewhere, contrarian player two elsewhere, then I think you're fine to go to Danny Green because he is one of the best point per dollar options.
Yeah, definitely. A reasonable option for sure. So I think okay, so the rest of the lineup, Joel Embiid, 10.6K. We talked about how value is a little bit tough to come by on today's slate. How does that affect your lineup building strategy? Because I think that price tag for him is pretty favorable
For
Embiid.
yeah, for Embiid. Yeah, I mean, I like the $10,600 price tag. The issue for me is that he's still only $300 less expensive than Giannis, who's also really cheap. And then also on this team, like 10.6 for Embiid is cheap, but 8,900 for Harden is really cheap as well. So I think Embiid's a good play, but I don't necessarily think he like stands out as drastically better than some of those other guys like Harden and Embiid at their respective salaries. It was interesting to me that in game two, you did get a 34.5% usage rate from Embiid. That was after in game one, he was only at 27%. Maxey in game one had a higher usage rate than Embiid. Harris and Harden were both at like 25.5%. In game two, Embiid got back to 34.5%. Nobody else topped 20%. So that's kind of what we were seeing, or that's closer at least to what we were seeing during the regular season. But, in the postseason, sometimes you will see, and it would make sense, for Toronto basically to do everything they can to get the ball out of Embiid's hands, force him to make more passes, force Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris to beat them. So you can't be quite as confident in Embiid's usage here, but it was good to see that it returned to normal in game two.
Nice. Thank you, Ryan, for the super chat. He says, does Caruso really deserve 42% ownership on FanDuel, or is he getting attention because he's Alex's doppelganger? Appreciate the compliment. But he had a pretty good game one. The minutes weren't like out of this world, and begs the question, like if Kobe White or Dosunmu plays well, if he could lose some minutes to them. But like there aren't too many cheap guys to feel confident in, and he's probably going to get the start. So what's your confidence level in Caruso at that ownership?
He's kind of like Danny Green-esque to me, where the ownership makes sense in that he projects better, I think, than anybody else in his price range from a point per hour standpoint. But it's still a relatively low point per minute guy. He averages around 0.8 fantasy points per minute. He's going to be playing a ton of minutes alongside Levine, Vooch, and DeRozan. So I think he's over-owned in the sense of like his ownership versus his chances of success. But just like we were saying with Danny Green, he's still one of the best point per dollar projected value plays. So as long as you've done something elsewhere in your lineup to be different, Caruso is still a strong option.
Definitely. I agree with that. All right. So rounding out the 76ers, Tobias Harris is picking up some interest at 6,700. A low price for him, but the usage has been down a lot since Harden joined the team. You mentioned Harden at his price, and then Tyrese Maxey also 6,900. That might be a little bit too high. I think he had a pretty good game one, but it's hard to see him really thriving with the Harden on the team, even though like he has been in the recent games. So how are you handling Maxey and Harris? Because I feel like they haven't been quite the same since Harden got traded onto this team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the price tags on them because they are rising. You have 6,900 on Maxey and I think 6,700 on Harris. On FanDuel, it's 7,500 for Maxey, 6,900 for Harris. So not like you're getting a discount there either. But I think the one thing to keep in mind with them, in addition to the fact that they are going to play big minutes, I mean, Maxey 41 minutes last game. Harris was at basically 39. The usage rate I think can be a little bit misleading because they are getting wide open looks. Like when you have to contend with Joel Embiid and James Harden, you're going to end up getting open looks for Maxey and Harris. So expecting a 17 to 20% usage rate isn't quite as unappealing as it would be at first glance because you're just getting wide open threes from guys that can knock them down.
Nice. If anyone's playing MLB DFS tonight, just one quick insight is that okay, so people were worried about this Cubs game weather, but they're playing this interleague game versus Tampa, and like it's the last one they're playing at home versus Tampa this year. So I think it's pretty unlikely that one gets postponed personally. All right. Okay, so let's look at Toronto. They are without Scottie Barnes most likely. He's doubtful. Gary Trent was sick last game. That was kind of I saw he was like 9% owned, and unfortunately for those 9% people, it did not work out at all because they just totally like didn't play him, even though he got the start. He played 10 minutes. But 2 days removed from this illness, I think we gotta expect that he's back to 90% probably, if not higher. What's your expectation for Gary Trent tonight?
Yeah, I think this is like a fascinating spot because I kind of have no idea, but people are obviously going to be scared off of him. Like, why wouldn't they be? Because they had said last game that he was very sick, but that he was going to try and play through it. He played less than 10 minutes. There's obviously risk here because he left game one early as well. So there's obviously risk here, but at the same time, the price tag has come down. 5K for Gary Trent is a really strong value. If if you knew that Gary Trent was 100% and there were no questions here, he'd be one of the highest owned guys on the slate at 5K. So there's certainly a lot of reward if you gamble on him and he is good to go. But obviously there's a lot of risk as well if he's still sick, and even if it doesn't affect his minutes, it can certainly affect his performance. So there's a lot of risk right now. We have him at 20% ownership. I'd be kind of interested. I will be interested to see where the ownership actually ends up, because I think obviously it's very difficult to project how project something arbitrary, like what percentage of the field is just going to X out Gary Trent because they don't trust him or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if the actual ownership ends up being a little bit lower, but I do like him in tournaments for that reason. I sure as hell wouldn't touch him in cash games, but yeah, he's really risky. But I do think that, given the amount of ownership going to guys like Danny Green and Alex Caruso and what it says about the lack of value on the slate, I do like the idea of taking some shots at Gary Trent and just, hoping it works out.
Yeah, definitely. I don't mind Gary Trent. I feel like, okay, he played 10 minutes in the last game. I mean, you see guys come back from an illness and play like their full minutes regularly. So if he wasn't even sick enough to miss the game, I know it's a playoff game, but I'm pretty skeptical that he's gonna be ill to the point where it really impacts his minutes here. But we'll see. I think he's interesting contrarian play, but the price tag isn't egregious. So I'm not going to be running to get him in all my lineups or anything. All right. So with Scottie Barnes out, Precious Achiuwa played a lot of minutes last game. He played 29. He didn't close though. Ken Birch got the closing minutes, which was a little bit surprising, but I think that just tells me that although he played 29, he could easily see mid-30s here. What are you thinking with Precious?
Yeah, I think that the minutes are volatile, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. 29 minutes and three quarters is certainly good to see. And if you told me that Achiuwa plays 29 to 30 minutes at 4,600, I would think that he's a decent option. He's averaged 0.85 DraftKings points per minute alongside Siakam this year. But like you were saying, you could see him in the closing lineup potentially. It was kind of strange that Birch closed over him. But at the same time, Thad Young only played 8 minutes last game. He didn't play at all in the second half. Maybe he gets some run. Maybe he cuts into Birch. Maybe he cuts into Achiuwa a little bit. So and then also the thing is, Gary Trent didn't close. So you had Boucher and Birch closing. If we assume Gary Trent is good to go and he's in the closing lineup, then there's only that one spot for Achiuwa or Boucher. So I think Achiuwa's risky, but I think that kind of goes both ways. There's certainly reward there if he plays well and gets 34 or 35 minutes. There's also the risk where, Boucher plays well and Gary Trent plays his full minutes and you only get 24 from Achiuwa, which obviously isn't exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, I have to say I feel a lot more confident in Chua than Nick Claxton, because I feel like Claxton, the team, they could go to Drummond, or I mean, I think that LaMarcus Aldridge matching up with Al Horford and Tice is a viable option for them. So Precious Achiuwa being number one on the depth chart at center right now, that sounds out as kind of a spot we can kind of rely on a little bit. But you did mention Thaddeus Young. He was doubtful last game and he didn't play that much. How much of a threat do you think that Boucher and Thaddeus Young have to Precious Achiuwa's minutes?
I think Boucher's the bigger threat, just because it wouldn't be surprising at all if you just see Boucher close the game or even close both halves. The rotation he played last game, obviously it was unusual, and he subbed in because Gary Trent went to the bench, 2 minutes and 25 seconds into the second half, and then Boucher never left the floor. But it wouldn't be shocking if, you just got him playing the last 12 or 14 minutes of the game or something. But I think a lot of that's just kind of going to depend on how the game is going, how guys are playing. Obviously, you can't really predict that in advance. You kind of just have to know that the risk is there. And the same can be said for Young. Like, I think it's more likely, Young played 8 minutes last game. Let's say he plays 16 to 18 here. I think he's cutting into Kem Birch's minutes before he's affecting Achua or Boucher. But if Young plays really well or something, you could certainly see more minutes from him too. So I think Achua is still the favorite to lead that group in minutes, but you are just getting basically another healthy body and potentially two healthy bodies with Gary Trent that makes Achua's minutes a little bit riskier in general.
Yeah, that's fair. And now Van Vliet and Pascal Siakam both stand out from a value perspective. Van Vliet, especially at 7,500, I think that like price tag, you can fit him in pretty much any lineup. So he is a guy that's known for playing monster minutes, and he didn't disappoint last game, playing 44. And then Siakam played about the same. So Siakam was at 42. How do those guys stack up tonight for you?
Yeah, I think they both look great. I think they're just a little bit underpriced here. And especially if you are electing to go a little bit more balanced, these are guys that you're building around, guys on Chicago. We'll talk about our guys you're building around. But like you were saying, kind of regardless of what type of build you're going with, you're going to be able to get to Van Vliet at 7,500, whether it's, as your second most expensive guy behind one of the payups, or if it's, a more balanced lineup. And Siakam's not that difficult to get to at 9K either. But I do think that Van Vliet probably is just a little bit easier to get to. But they both stand out as, to me, the top two guys from Toronto.
Nice. All right, let's talk about Prize Picks. They run daily prop-based contests. You can use the promo code Awesemo for $100 first match deposit bonus, and you can also get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum after signing up. The way it works is you pick 2 to 5 props and kind of build a lineup. Have to span 2 different teams, and you can select some different payout structures. So you can do it. So if you get 2 out of 3, you get like a certain amount, or you don't get anything unless you get 3 out of 3 if you have a three person prop lineup. So a lot of fun. You can use our projections and the player props tool on the site to be able to identify which props might be the most favorable. So let's talk about some props that we're liking tonight. One that I'm seeing is popping up pretty high is Seth Curry rebounds over 2. So we have him for 3 rebounds. I'd say 2 is a likely outcome as well. If it gets 2, it's a push. So we're not really worried about that. It's just like, what's the probability of 3 or more versus 1 or less? And I think that's something you can bank on. Seth Curry over 2 rebounds. Which props are you feeling tonight?
Yeah, I like the over 4 assists for Levine. Just expecting him to play a ton of minutes here and, obviously be involved as a playmaker. So I think that looks good. And then we have over 6 rebounds for Bruce Brown. I like that one as well, just because, again, I expect him to play a lot of minutes. And then he's someone that would benefit potentially if they do run a small lineup. Again, no guarantee that they do. But if you get, Drummond and Claxton off the floor, that gives Brown an advantage in rebounding as well.
All right, so if you go 3 props, you can either do all right, let's see. You can either do 2 correct pays 1.25x, 3 correct pays 2.25x, or 3 correct pays 5x. Which one should we roll with?
Always the biggest one.
The power play. I like it. All right, guys. So make sure to check out Prize Picks. If you're not already a member, that promo code Awesemo gives you a $100 first match deposit bonus. And you can also claim a free month of Awesemo Plus. All right. Arturo says $2 super chat. What's the formula for calculating a Slate optimal score? You might have to pay a lot more than $2 to get that answer. But no, actually, it's just simulations we run, trying to figure out, like, in different outcomes, who's going to be in the optimal lineup. So we saved you the trouble, and that is all on the Boom Bust page for you, so you don't have to create your own sim and stuff. All right, let's talk about Chicago. Big underdog versus Milwaukee tonight. One of the things that some of my buddies were like, we're driving up to Milwaukee for the game. Like, maybe it's not that typical home away vibe because these cities are so close. A little bit of a fun series here. But Chicago is certainly a huge underdog to the reigning champs. So who are you looking at on the Bulls tonight?
I think the Bulls are really underpriced across the board. Obviously, it's a scary matchup in terms of both. They could just get destroyed by Milwaukee, but also Milwaukee's a good team defensively. But we already kind of touched on Alex Caruso being really popular just because he's 4,300. He's around a point 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. He's likely to give you 32 minutes or so. And he's just the kind of guy, too, that I feel pretty confident in his minutes just because, like, he's the type of guy that gets more minutes in the playoffs just because, like, of everything he does well, defensively and just as a a piece that doesn't need to score, but that kind of holds things together. So I feel pretty confident in his minutes. But then when you talk about the three main guys, DeRozan down at 8,300, Vooch at 7,300, Levine at 7,200 on FanDuel. Those are all just, I think, $500 to $1,000 less expensive than they should be. And the same is true on FanDuel, where DeRozan's 85 and then Vooch and Levine are both 7,700. So very similar pricing. The one thing to keep in mind is that pricing on this slate is just kind of soft in general. So it's not like pricing is really sharp and then you have these guys underpriced, because that would really drive up their ownership and make them look really good. But, there is still a lot of value to be had here. So I think that, Caruso from a value standpoint makes a lot of sense. And then all three of the studs are underpriced. If you wanted to find lower owned value, you can take shots on a 4K Patrick Williams or a $3,900 Kobe White as well. The playing time is certainly kind of questionable there. Patrick Williams, they should want out there defensively, but if they're playing from behind, maybe they go to Kobe White a little bit more. The issue with White is that even though he's a capable scorer, when he's playing with Levine, Vooch, and DeRozan, he's still clearly the fourth option. So you can't. It's not like times last year where Kobe White was just the guy and you could expect him to have a 25% usage rate. That's very unlikely to happen here. Things are really weird if Kobe White is the one shooting a lot. But at the same time, 14% ownership on White compared to 40% or whatever it is on Caruso and Green. Certainly a spot within individual lineups that you can make a pivot.
Yeah, one of the things that I found interesting about the Bulls rotation in game one is that they played Kobe White. Okay, so he played about 22, 23 minutes. And then Ayo Dosunmu only played 9 minutes, which was kind of a reversal of the trend we've been seeing over the last couple months of the regular season, where Dosunmu was kind of getting that run over Kobe White. So do you feel a little bit worried that Kobe White might lose some minutes, so like Caruso and Dosunmu, and that 20 minutes was kind of an outlier?
Not too concerned. Like, it certainly could happen, but the way that I kind of think about it is that the Bulls are 10-point dogs here. They're likely to be playing from behind for the majority of the game, and if you're trying to get buckets in a hurry, Kobe White is the more appealing option to have on the floor over Dosunmu, I think.
Nice. All right, so Patrick Williams, I've kind of pegged him as a bounce back candidate. He only played 22 minutes or 23 minutes in the first game, but over the last couple of weeks, he's been playing closer to 30 minutes. But he's not really a good fantasy point producer anyway. So I don't know how much I'm going to get to him, despite I think he's going to play a lot more minutes than he did last game. Any interest in Patrick Williams?
A little bit. I think he's kind of similar to Kobe White for me, where it's like he's only getting 15% ownership, and there's a path to him getting more minutes if he plays well. The concern I have with his playing time, though, and why I don't necessarily think he has to get a lot more minutes, is that I think it's kind of like, obviously DeRozan, Vooch, and Levine are locked into their roles, playing upper 30s, low 40s. I feel pretty confident in Caruso getting low to mid 30s. So you're kind of just talking about that one final spot where if Chicago's playing from behind, Kobe White is the guy that I think they go to over Williams just because he offers more offensively. If somehow the Bulls are winning this game, I think Patrick Williams definitely picks up more minutes. And he certainly could pick up a few more minutes anyway than he did last game, at the expense of somebody like Derek Jones or Javonte Green. But I do think that because they're likely to be trailing for a lot of this game, it could have a negative impact on Williams' minutes again.
Yeah, that is a good point. One guy that had a huge game in game one was Nicole Obusovic. Now, I found it kind of interesting. Like, I noticed the prop markets were really low on Vucevic. I think it's because Brook Lopez plays more from the outside, so they're thinking Vucevic will be playing farther from the rim, get fewer rebounds, fewer blocks. But that wasn't the case at all in game one. I think he got like close to 20 rebounds. What did you make of that? And like, do you think this is a good matchup for Vucevic?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a legitimate concern whenever you go up against uh, bigs that are going to pull you away from the basket. It can have a negative impact on rebounding, but I also don't think that it should be overstated. Like it's still Vooch is still likely to do fine in terms of rebounding. And no, I don't think it's a particularly good matchup. I mean, the Bucks are a good team defensively. Brook Lopez individually is a good defender, but I care a lot more about the price tag on Vooch than I do any of that. And at what I think is basically $1,000 discount, there's not really any concerns that you could bring up that would make me like want to get away from Vooch.
Yeah, definitely. He played 38 minutes last game, which is monster for $7,300 at center. So that could definitely I mean that's a killer play at center regardless of the matchup here. Now on the Milwaukee side, they've been rolling with Wesley Matthews at the 2 recently. He played 26 minutes or 27 minutes last game. At 3,200, like he's probably the cheapest playable guy on the slate, but like I don't feel very confident in those minutes at all. And then it seems like they got a ton of wings here: Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, uh, who could those two being the main ones that could get those minutes. Kind of bearing the lead here by starting the box with Wesley Matthews. But what do you make of this?
Yeah, so I agree with you that the minutes certainly could disappear. Like he closed that game. He played the final 8 minutes and 14 seconds. That could very easily be Pat Connaughton. It could very easily be Grayson Allen. It could be Bobby Portis. Like it can be anybody other than Wesley Matthews. And on top of that, he's averaged half a fantasy point per minute this year. So even if you guarantee he gets 27, 28 minutes, you're kind of talking about like 13 or 14 fantasy points anyway.
All right, thanks Weatherman7 for the super chat. He just says hype. Appreciate that. D Owens 89 says Dragic, Middleton, Brown, or Milton, Drew Smart, FanDuel.
I like the Dragic side.
Dragic, Middleton, Brown. Nice. Yeah, I'm pretty much on the fence there, but I feel more confident in those guys than Milton, who like I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to play that much. All right, so Giannis, 10.9K. I think he's the most expensive player on the slate for good reason, but that just makes it like that much tougher to fit him in a lineup. He does seem like a good value. What are you gonna do here?
I'm really intrigued by the lack of ownership going to Giannis right now. Like I understand that he's the most expensive guy, but the pricing is just really condensed at the top. So I do like getting to a 19% owned Giannis. I mean, he projects as the highest scoring guy on the slate, and it's a good spot against Chicago. The only, I guess, like negative is that um, Giannis is likely to play fewer minutes than most of the other pay up options, but I think you can still get 36 or 37 if this game's competitive. He only played 34 last game, but he dealt with some foul trouble. Budenholzer basically fouled him out himself at the end of the game as well. So if he's able to avoid fouls, you certainly could get 36, 37 minutes from Giannis. So at that ownership, I really like it because like we've talked about the high ownership coming into guys like Danny Green and Alex Caruso. If Giannis was then getting like 40% ownership as well, then you're kind of looking at it and saying like, okay, obviously Giannis is a really good play, but you're just playing very similar lineups to everybody else. But the fact that he's only projected for 19% ownership, you can put yourself in pretty advantageous spots if you go heavy on Giannis and he has a big game, even while using some of that popular value plays. So I am really interested in him at that ownership. Holiday, Middleton, Lopez, I think all look pretty good. Holiday and Middleton right in that same price range with Levine and Vucevic and Van Vliet. If you are going balanced, I think these guys are both really good plays. I think they're going to be pretty easy to get to. And then Brook Lopez as a value at 4,800, I think looks fine as well.
So this is kind of something that really sums up the slate, and this is part of why the boom bust tool is really helpful to break down the slate. So Giannis is 43% boom, which means we have him at a 43% chance to get at least okay, so that'd be like 64 points. But only 18% chance of being the Apple lineup versus 19% ownership because it is so hard to like fill out the lineup with those value guys. You need to get Giannis. The he's actually fourth in the team in optimal percent on DraftKings, with Holiday, Middleton, and Lopez all being in the 22 to 23% range, which is really surprising to me because Brook Lopez we have as being a positive 0.4 points over 5x, which is like very mediocre. He played good minutes in game one, 32, but not the best per minute producer, especially for a center. But oh yeah, he's only 12% chance of going 5x plus 10, but 22% chance of being optimal. One of the guys that's actually popping in the boom bust tool is Pat Connaughton at 3,400, 14% chance of being optimal. Like that's probably not a guy that people are gonna scroll down and click on, but it really shows how valuable some of these cheap guys are, even though they don't really stand out as being great individual plays. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that all of that just kind of speaks to like how questionable the value is on this slate. I do like the idea of Connaughton though, because it's a situation where, you know, in game one, he only played 18 minutes, and sure, he could play 18 minutes again, but Connaughton can play multiple positions. He's, you know, a good rotation. He's a solid rotation piece. So there's a lot of ways, you know, this game can play out, whether it's somebody being in foul trouble or Connaughton just playing well or whatever it may be. There's plenty of ways he can pick up several more minutes here. He's only $3,400. He's about a 0.75 fantasy point per minute guy. So the minutes are volatile. But again, when you're talking about somebody this cheap and relatively low owned, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Nice. Yeah, so some interesting plays here. Some of those guys that you might be like, I don't know about this guy. Like, they're definitely more valuable on today's slate if they're cheap. Like Danny Green is kind of the quintessential guy, 26% chance of being the optimal lineup though. Before we hit the road and give it over to Eric and Greg for Live Before Lock, I want to give a shout out to some of the Awesemo Hall of Fame here. So to become part of the Awesemo Hall of Fame, you just have to download the avatar at awesemo.com/avatar. Place in the top 3 of a 5,000 person or more contest without too many ties. And then you can make it onto here, get your free month of Awesemo Plus. Shout out to Mike. He said he got one last night on Yahoo, the NBA 30K Monday Playoff Baller. Finished first. Pretty sick takedown by Mike. Congrats. Ricky Bobby said, if you're not at first, you're last. Glad that's not true in DFS. Thanks to the tools and guys over at Awesemo. Finished second for 40K. Not sure what sport that is, but it looks like actually it's NBA because 327 points. Super solid takedown there. Congrats to Rich. We got Unreliable Expert. Won the Minimax 2 nights in a row. That is quite the flex. First time winning a GPP in first season in MLB. So if you haven't already signed up for MLB package, you know, like we got a lot of great tools to help you. And congrats to Unreliable Expert for those 2 Minimax takedowns. Chad said, only my 5th day on Underdog, took second in the main NBA contest for $3,100. Thanks to Awesemo.com crew, including Show My Money, Eric, Laffy, Greg, Josh. So congrats to Chad. And another Chad Stocker, had a nice NASCAR weekend in the trucks races. I've been enjoying some of those. I assume this was the dirt race this weekend, which is always a lot of fun. Had some nice finishes in the 15K Chrome Horn for $800. Congrats, Chad. All right, 1 minute. Adam, final thoughts for tonight's slate.
I think there's a lot of ways you can go. You know, I think that, like you said, there's definitely some value that you're not going to feel very good about clicking on, but it opens up a lot. You know, don't be afraid to kind of roll the dice on some cheap guys and kind of hope to run good. But you also can go balanced here. There's a very, very underpriced mid-range of very high upside guys. So I think that it should be a pretty fun slate because there's just a lot of different ways that you can attack it.
Yeah, this should be a good one. One last super chat from Jeff. He says Harden / Bruce Brown or Kyrie with Trent, Claxton, or Lopez, high dollar, GK, GPP. I feel pretty confident with Harden, Bruce Brown, to be honest. I prefer Harden to Kyrie, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm on the same page there.
Awesome. All right, guys, good luck tonight. Got a full hour of content coming up, leading all the way to lock. And if you haven't checked out our sponsor Prize Picks, make sure to jump in there. Use the promo code Awesemo, $100 match deposit plus a free month of Awesemo Plus. And Eric and Greg will take you all the way up to lock here. And if there's any breaking news, we got you covered. So stay tuned.
I'm distraught.
Yeah,
I'm suing for mental damages.
exactly. You're gonna win too. You're my. I'll be your witness.
Yeah, all I have to do is package any YouTube show I've ever been on.
That's true. Actually, I'm gonna get sued in this. No, drop the lawsuit. Drop the lawsuit. What's going on, guys? It is the Awesemo NBA Live before lock, and Eric and I are gonna be here for not an hour, not 90 minutes, 2 full hours of Eric and I. So if you guys want to stick around after lock, watch the games, hang out with us, make fun of us, ask us questions, tell us which players we roster are doing poorly. Don't tell us which players do well. We don't want any of that. We only want you to troll us in that final hour, so that'll be fun. We're sponsored by Prize Picks today, so we're talking about some of the props we like for the later games as well. Eric, you also have a baseball sweat going on. Tell the people about that and what they should be rooting for.
Oh, all right. Well, I was like in third, fourth in the $15 here. I think I'm sitting in fourth right now. Alec Boehm, if he does anything for me, I can move up the board. But 20K sweat here, the $15 of the early baseball sweat. It's nice to have baseball sweats back in the mix. However, when they're in the morning, it always cuts a little bit into work. So I've been a little distracted going through the NBA streets. Luckily, this isn't like some moving parts type situation we've had towards the end of the NBA season. So at least I know what to expect. I'm able to get my lineups in, but it's going to be fun to track while this game's while we're building lineups here live.
Which, while we're, by the way, somebody said Greg for president. I want none of that. It is EMAC 2024. I'm not even going to compete with EMAC, who's in the chat right now. But yeah, I've got the game pulled up on my iPad right here, so I could watch along and root for you. And we're rooting for everybody to make outs except for Alec Boehm when he comes up, and then I'll be happy. So we're going to be doing some. I'll be doing some live play-by-play. Do you have the game pulled up in front of you as well?
Yeah, I've got that. I've got the iPad, and I'm ready to rock.
Okay, so where are you at in the game right now? Just so I know we're synced
Bottom
up.
8, Diaz is up. He's got 1-2 pitch. He just grounded out or popped out. Sorry,
flew out to left field.
Yep.
Oh my God, the results are different on my iPad than on yours. This is going to be quite the sweat.
No, I have the ESPN thing in the corner, and then my MLB TV is a little behind.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I just have the game playing on my iPad. So it's Charlie Blackmon coming up right now.
Yes, sir. Do nothing. Right. Do nothing. A 19% Charlie Blackmon who's dust. What a time to be alive.
Let's at Coors Field where anything goes. But anyway, wanted to get that out of the way that Eric has a sweat going on. It'll be something fun for us to track over the course of this show. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel once again. Shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. If you
Eric.
are exactly. I can't even say it's because I can't read because I don't look at the ad reads anymore. I just know them off the top of my head. I just don't know English, which is a whole different issue and could be also problematic over the next couple hours. But if you guys are signing up for Prize Picks, which is the sponsor on today's show, use the promo code Awesemo. You get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit and 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum that keeps Terry busy, keeps Terry in work, which is all the more reason for you guys to be signing up for. Now, I know, Eric, you've got baseball on your mind right now, but what are just your overarching thoughts for tonight's 3-game slate?
Yeah, this is a fun one. And it's the same thing that I felt about Giannis last slate, where I found it very difficult to land on him in a meaningful way. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving kind of falling by the wayside also, and we know the immense amount of upside they have. This is a Boston game. You don't want to be going down 0-2, going back home, and then have Ben Simmons play when you're down 1-2 or 0-3 coming in for game 4. Feels like a wonky spot. Brooklyn needs to absolutely assert themselves here. Not for you, because I know you have all the Boston futures and all the land, but it's really kind of figuring out how I'm going to pay up for some of these guys. Over on FanDuel, Joel Embiid is kind of the main stud people are going up for. He's at the center spot. He's got power forward eligibility, which just makes me laugh every single time you look at it. But over on DK, you just kind of get a little bit of a different roster construction. These studs aren't as high priced as they were during the regular season, but there aren't really the cheapies to pair with them that are as easy. So I think this entire mid-range, figuring out how to get a little bit different on this slate, that's going to kind of be the key for me.
So the key for me is the status of Scottie Barnes. He is listed as doubtful, but in the Raptors' last game, you know who else was listed as doubtful? Gary Trent Jr. and Thaddeus Young. And what happened? They ended up playing. Scottie Barnes is listed as doubtful. He practiced today. He was not wearing a walking boot. He was in his full basketball attire when Nick Nurse asked, will Scottie Barnes play? Per the quote we got, he slyly smiled and said, maybe. I think Scottie Barnes is way more live to play than a typical doubtful tag shows. And we only have to go back to the Raptors' last game where they had 2 guys listed as doubtful that ended up playing. Do I think that means Scottie Barnes for sure plays? No, but I think he's probably closer to questionable than doubtful. Is that something you've read into at all?
Nick Nurse is the worst. Like the stone cold worst. I find it pretty capable that I can get onto some with 2 of the 3 games later on here. Brooklyn, Boston, I think we're automatically going to have some interest there. Just underpriced studs, and specifically Jason Tatum on DK being 9,500, Jaylen Brown 8,600. I still have quite a bit of interest in getting to as well. I think it's going to be pretty simple for me to fall onto some Scottie Barnes if need be. But as you said, it's not that it's Scottie Barnes that we really want to get to. It's these other Raptors that are very much affected by it. Gary Trent Jr., not that enthralled. At least they're a little bit more expensive that I don't feel like I'm really missing out. But considering it's just a 3-game slate, it's obviously a massive massive piece of, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's just one of those things where no matter what, everything that matters, like on a 3-game slate, any piece of news, especially for a starter, is going to have a massive impact to the slate. But I don't think it's going to be too difficult for me to either get onto Scottie Barnes or get off of some of these Raptors.
Yeah. And I mean, at least as it stands right now, it's hard to not be really invested in some of these Raptors guys. Yeah. Fred VanVleet in particular, I just think is crazy underpriced on FanDuel and DraftKings. He's actually my most rostered player right now. Not quite the John Collins from yesterday, but, amongst that kind of really good value. The difference is people are going to be on VanVleet yesterday. I know people were on John Collins yesterday. You and I did not think people were going to be on John Collins as heavily as they were. But yeah, Fred VanVleet, I think, is a really strong option today. Pascal Siakam, more so on FanDuel, but still someone going to get to. So if we find out that Scottie Barnes is playing, that is going to be something that impacts a lot of lineups, just because a lot of those Toronto guys, well, it doesn't make them unplayable. It's going to make me lower the projection for them and get to them a little bit less. But that aside, let's talk about the information we actually do know right now, which is pretty much the rest of this slate, because there is nobody officially listed as questionable. We just have the Scottie Barnes doubtful. But like I said, I think he's a little more live to play than we would typically expect from a questionable tag. But as the slate stands right now, Eric, who are the guards you are getting to the most? And maybe we should talk a little bit about Fred VanVleet too, just because I just said that he's right now my most rostered player.
Yeah, he makes a lot of sense. 7,500, regardless of Scottie Barnes being in or out. This is a guy that is going to play massive minutes in a home spot against this team. No Matisse Thybulle, which defensively is going to matter, I think, a little bit for Philadelphia. Being on the road as opposed to in Philly is going to matter to Philadelphia. So Fred VanVleet, 7,500 coming off of 44 minutes. 44 minutes is as many as you're seeing from any guard, period, on this slate. So Fred VanVleet, as secure as it gets. Alex Caruso, Marcus Smart, the other two pieces of chalk. I think Marcus Smart is the guy I absolutely can't live without. I'm going to be trying to get off of Alex Caruso again for the second straight slate. He played 33 minutes. He can definitely burn you on a site like FanDuel, where I'm a little bit more inclined to get to a tiny bit, but 4,300 on DK, I know he's getting a lot of attention, 33.5%, but I just don't think the number of times that he's going to go for 28, 30. It's just really hard for me to imagine I need him on DraftKings today. What are you kind of doing with him?
Yeah. So, by the way, did you see what's going on in chat right now?
No.
We've got porn bots going crazy. Just the most ridiculous thing ever that Jordan kicked out. Jordan, I said this in chat. We have a 2-hour show. Can you let us have some fun? Do you have to boot every single porn bot? Yeah, exactly. Jordan, we don't have to boot every porn bot that shows, it's what's happening right now.
What?
Alec Boehm is coming up, is he not?
Oh, yeah, he is. I just saw Schwarber 2-1 pitch. Again, I'm going back for a flight out. There you go.
Yeah, so
see,
Schwarber...
You're ahead of me. This is brutal.
Yeah, Schwarber flew out to center field. So what do you want? Because I'm ahead of you. You don't want me to spoil this for you at all, I assume?
I mean, does he just go yard first pitch? That'd be so incredible.
I mean, I don't know, because his at bat hasn't started yet.
1-0. Yeah, see, I'm a little bit ahead of you now.
Okay. So... yeah, he's getting the first pitch right now on my MLB TV. So for everybody at home watching, listening, whatever it may be, Eric has a sweat in the $15 early baseball contest. He needs Alec Boehm, who's been maybe the best hitter in baseball to this point, to come through for him. So we are rooting for Alec Boehm to do things for the sake of Eric right now.
500 on the year for what it's worth. He can't play defense, and that's problematic. But, especially because Bryce Harper's going to play DH for this team forever now.
He grounded out to third. Yeah.
Joke.
Weak ground out. Oh, well.
Suffering crap.
Somebody in YouTube chat thought, I think I saw somebody call for 2 homers in the inning for Alec Boehm. He's still, actually, it would probably be suboptimal for you at this point. They bat around, would it?
Yeah, it would be bad. I think.
All right. Well, what else? So do you have anything else in your lineup that we could still root for coming up here?
I mean, if it comes back around to, let's see, Clement. I mean, I did like 2K punt and did that to be able to play a Philly stack with Beaver and Woodruff. Thought that might be a different way to go from other people. Just hand build like a couple lineups in that thing, as well as played my normal allotment. I'm looking at, it would have to get back around to Bryce Harper. And that's just, I don't think that would be a good thing for me.
All right. So let's just root for all outs here. We take the top 5 finish. We count our money. We move on with the night, right? This is what we want to root for now. I don't have your lineup in front of me.
And now we're cheering for the Orioles here against Oakland. Let's go. Dalton Jeffries. Goodbye, please.
Did you for the baseball slate, did you play on FanDuel and DraftKings?
I only played FanDuel for the afternoon one because it had 10 games as opposed to, a 7-gamer that turned into 5 on DK.
Yeah, so I only played DK on both slates, mostly because I was busy with other things. By the way, the Phillies are done in the top of the 9th inning, so let's just get 1, 2, 3 for the Rockies, and I'm gonna be done with the nonsense that is Coors Field.
It's great.
But yeah, I just had other stuff going on, so I only played on DraftKings for baseball for the night and the early. But this just totally ridiculous, the entire baseball slate with them moving around times and whatnot. But nobody wants to hear about that. We've got basketball to talk about. And sorry, it slipped my mind. Which player were we asking me about before we went to watch Alec Bonds at bat?
Oh, Alex Caruso.
Oh, Caruso, yes. So here's where I view a lot of the value plays on this slate. There's none of them that I love. And I understand why a lot of these guys are popular. I understand why Caruso is popular. I understand why Danny Green is popular. And here's the issue I run into. There are so many stars on this slate that I feel like I need to get some exposure to some of these guys, whether it's, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, but there isn't that much cheap value to get to. So I kind of feel like we're forced to play some of these really cheap guys, even if I don't think they have the most upside in the world. I've been on the wrong side of Alex Caruso so many times this season, and he hasn't really been great in the playoffs either. But there's a path for the guys like Caruso and Danny Green to go out and score 20 fantasy points. And let's say that Joel Embiid puts up 65, Giannis puts up 75. You're simply going to need these guys in your lineup, and there just aren't other cheap players that we're like getting to outside of the likes of Caruso and Danny Green. So I feel like I was kind of forced to play more of Caruso than I actually would have liked to.
We have Boucher, we have Gary Trent Jr., we have Precious Achiuwa, and regardless of what you think about Scottie Barnes, do you think Scottie Barnes can play 44 minutes today?
No.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at with it, where I don't think Scottie Barnes plays just 40 whatever minutes that we saw before. There's an opportunity for them to go to guys like Boucher and Trent Jr. quite a bit. I know the Boom Bust tool loves them. I love getting to them as more of my punts. Even an uncomfortable thing like Seth Curry at 4,500, at least there's a path to upside. The thing about Caruso is he's not going to be the guy who wins you a GPP. Like I find it hard to believe he's going to be the guy who puts up 35, 40. And it's like, oh, well, you needed to have that 33% of chalk. I think you can win. I know the FanDuel winner from 2 days ago had Caruso. He had sub 20 fantasy points and he still had him in the lineup. And that's the kind of stuff that can work out for you. But over a long period of time, I would rather just kind of embrace the volatility of taking other pieces of value that might not project out as well, just because I think Caruso comes in overowned in this spot just about every time. So on DK specifically, I'm willing to just chop the ownership. I think on FanDuel, it's a little bit more difficult just because of the bump for steals. There's an obvious path where at 4,400, he can work out as a nice piece of value.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with that. Like I said, I don't have Caruso projected that well. I haven't projected for low 20s fantasy points. He still winds up in a lot of my lineups in both FanDuel and DraftKings. And I think that's just because a lot of the higher end guys we have to choose from on this slate. But, there are some good mid-range plays. Talk about Fred VanVleet. He's going to be a really high priority play for me on both sites. And then we've got other guys too, like Zach LaVine. LaVine, I think, is really underpriced, particularly on DraftKings. So he's somebody that I end up getting to a lot over there. FanDuel's a little bit different where LaVine is 7,700, but his DK price point, I think it's looking good. By the way, 1 out in the bottom of the 9th inning now. So I think we're on the same page with a lot of that, but are there any guard
Barnes
values?
Ruled out.
What's that?
Barnes ruled out.
Okay, there we go. So nothing we have to change there. That's a little peace of mind.
Yeah, peace of mind because Nick Nurse is the stone cold worst. So confirmation is a good thing to have.
And we got a super chat. I missed we got a couple of super chats that have come in now. But first, our guy, Michael McKinney, the question, the normal one we got from him. Oh no, never mind. I just saw the name and I presumed the question. This is why you can't jump to conclusions. But Michael McKinney, he's asking us a different question. And he even says it a little different today. Who are the 5 must plays today? So we know he's asking a FanDuel question. So I want to ask, in your FanDuel builds right now, who are the 5 players you have the most exposure to?
Chris Middleton is unavoidable in every meaning of the word. 6,800, he's unavoidable. Joel Embiid, 10-4, completely unavoidable. Fred VanVleet, even at 7,800, not as advantageous as DK, but still for me, unavoidable. And Drew Holiday, that's going to be pretty unavoidable. I'm going to actually go. I'm going to be skipping the Caruso play, 4,400. I think if you're playing cash, you play Caruso. Probably going to have some utility in that regard. The guy that I'm going to be making a big stand on both sides today is James Harden. He's 9,200 going up against Toronto. And think about it this way. They are up 2-0 going on the road here. There's no Matisse Thybulle, which is a guy who's in the rotation, hasn't been playing a ton of minutes, but we've seen 40 and 41 minutes for a guy who just fills up a stat sheet constantly. I don't know how we don't view James Harden through a different lens on both sites. 8,900 on DK is just asinine to me. And I know everybody's undervalued, but a 20% James Harden, who I think has 60-point upside, that's a little bit different than guys like Zach LaVine, who's still a great play. Fred VanVleet, we've talked about, great play. James Harden just has that kind of tournament ceiling where I want to get to tons of him. He has utility on FanDuel where you can play him at small forward as well for whatever godforsaken reason. I just really, really like him today.
Yeah, I mean, James Harden, I prefer him a little bit on DK, but I think he's reasonable on FanDuel as well. As for the guys that I have the most exposure to on FanDuel right now, Precious Achiuwa, Alex Caruso, Fred VanVleet, Chris Middleton, and Derek White is one for me. And I'm not totally sure of what his minutes are going to be, but the rotation that the Celtics played in game one was so condensed that I think we're looking at upper 20s minutes for Derek White. And I think he's a good pivot off of Alex Caruso. Looking right now at, well, actually, let me see the ownership to see what that has moved to. But reading off the minutes that the Celtics played in game one of this series, it was massive minutes to the starters and Derek White, and just nobody else was really involved. By the way, Derek White is projected for 25% ownership as compared to 42% for Caruso. So White is still fairly popular relative to a 3-game slate. I think that's a reasonable pivot to make. But here are the minutes that we got out of the Celtics in game one of the series. Tatum, 45 minutes. Al Horford, 41 and a half. Jaylen Brown, 40. Marcus Smart, 36. Then we had Derek Wright with 28. And then he got 21 out of Grant Williams, 20 out of Daniel Tice. This is going to be a very tight Celtics rotation. I think they're just prioritizing playing their key guys. So for that reason, I do like Derek White here. And I think in general, these Celtics guys make for really high floor plays, higher floor than Steven Adams, if I must say. Would you agree with that? Maybe a little safer?
Wasn't that fun?
Oh, it was certainly fun for me. And even in hindsight, like I thought Brandon Clark was so crazy over-owned yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
That it was a spot where I really wanted to get leverage off of him. And by the way, the Rockies-Phillies game is over, so we've survived that 9-6. And I even in hindsight, I was like, I didn't know that. Obviously, I didn't think Adams was going to play 2 minutes, or else I wouldn't have played him. But I don't know if I would have got on Tillman either. I just wasn't going to play Clark at that kind of ownership. But whatever, I clearly came out on the wrong side of that. And the kind people of Twitter certainly reminded me, which I always do appreciate, the back and forth. Also, you know what else I appreciate? Liking this video and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Super chat from Aiden Jones, Wesley Matthews or Pat Connaughton?
Yeah, so Wesley Matthews, I mean, that was a huge talking point, I thought, for Sunday's slate. I did the show with EMAC for that one, EMAC 2024. He played 27 minutes. So regardless of anything, 13.75, I thought he was the key to unlocking Giannis in tournaments and thought that it had some utility. But as we saw, Giannis, there's going to be games where he isn't the highest scorer on the slate. And if he's not, you're probably in a lot of trouble with how much mid-range plays, with how many mid-range plays they are. He's at 11%. Wes Matthews is on this slate. I don't think we need to try to make that a thing. I would much rather play Pat Connaughton if I'm picking one of the two, but both of them already feel a little bit overowned to me. Probably not going to be going that direction. So what was the other part of it?
He was just asking whether we prefer.
That's going to be the guy I prefer.
Yeah, Wes Matthews or Pat Connaughton. I have Connaughton projected slightly better. Neither of them are high priority plays, but if it has to be one or the other, it's going to be Pat Connaughton for me. Looking at some of the other potential guards, I want to ask you, is there anybody you're taking a shot on from Philly with Matisse Thybulle out? I know Thybulle hasn't played a massive role in this series, but it's still, a dozen or so minutes we have to allocate to other players. And just given the fact that we are so thin on value, and this is going to be a little more DraftKings specific than FanDuel, but is there anybody like a Shake Milton, for instance, that you're willing to take a chance on, just hoping that they get to, 20 minutes and can pop some upside with the absence of Thybulle?
No, I wanted to come in guns blazing with a Gabe Vincent take, which, by the way, I thought that still worked out okay. I mean, Delon Wright out of the middle of nowhere played more minutes than Danilo Gallinari, which was something that Adam had put on Twitter as well today. Pretty bonkers the way that rotation shook out. But from the Miami side, Gabe Vincent made some sense, and he was 2% and was actually a guy that worked out really nicely if you played him in single entry stuff or got up to some studs. I don't really see it here from Philadelphia. This is kind of where I'm looking at, like, a guy like James Harden, I think just plays that crazy amount of minutes. I think Tyrese Maxey probably carries more minutes as well. I know he's pretty low owned because he's all the way up to 6,900, but something just tells me more of those minutes go to Maxey, where he's 38, 41 minutes. We really haven't seen Matisse Thybulle play a crazy amount of minutes down the stretch. He only played 10. Now, again, those 10 minutes have to go somewhere, and Danny Green feels like the leader in the clubhouse for what that is. But at 39% owned, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to have some shares because I'm playing more than one lineup, but I'm not going to be getting to a 40% Danny Green or that allotment in my lineups. Much more inclined to think that if anybody comes in for 10 minutes, it could even be like a Furkan Korkmaz. And that really doesn't provide me much of anything. I know he's 3K. Maybe he can come in and knock down some shots, but something tells me it's just going to be the starters getting even more condensed minutes.
Yeah, that's also a possibility. Here's what I think of Danny Green. If you're playing cash games, go play him.
Yes.
In tournaments, I'm also getting to him a little bit. He's probably a little bit over-owned. But if you're looking to go stars and scrubs, he's kind of hard to totally overlook. But I agree, the ownership does look a little bit high when you just look at it because he's Danny Green and he's projected to be the second most rostered player on DraftKings. FanDuel is going to be a different story because Danny Green, well, number one, the pricing is a lot softer, but he's also 4,100, 29% lower ownership, still very high for Danny Green individually there. Let's look at the other players at the guard spot. And what are you doing with Marcus Smart? Also very, very popular play today. He is currently projected to be the most rostered player on all of DraftKings and on Fan. It would help if I didn't have a million tabs up right now because I'm trying to edit my MLB lineups while I'm talking.
Oh my God.
For the later slate
stuff. Well, first of all, Dalton Jeffries had 2 strikeouts in the first inning. Just shoot me. Jordan Lyles, I took a pretty big stand on 6K on FanDuel. Thought I'd get to some of that, but like the Mets lineup hadn't even come out yet. And so I'm just making sure that I didn't get any riffraff in some of those lineups, that guys that aren't even in it. That would be bad.
Yeah, riffraff. That's I like calling stuff riffraff. That's fun. Yeah,
thank you, riffraff. I mean, it's just
that's a very Eric word. That, yeah. And like, what are some other Ericisms?
You know what riffraff is, right?
Yeah, just riffraff.
Okay, you don't know what riffraff is, but that's adorable.
I know the saying. I don't know like the exact.
See, look at this. I just saw Jeff McNeil showed up in 2% of lineups. I don't want that trash in here. This is not
riffraff.
Good. Riffraff. There you go.
Also, Domer 707. Can Greg please just talk crap about Steven Adams? I mean, I can't really. He played 2 minutes. He picked up 2 fouls, played 2 minutes, and they were like, we're just going to go elsewhere with our center rotation now. It's not, he sucked. I predicted the rotation wrong. I'm not going to blame the refs either. I know people want me to blame the refs. It has nothing to do with the referees. There was a lot of foul trouble. A lot of it was just bad fouls. You know who takes awful fouls? Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, he does.
You can't, there's no point where you could blame. Like we've got Xavier Tillman is shooting threes yesterday and Cat's like mauling him as he's shooting the shot. Like
how about his 2 charges that were so egregiously bad that it's not even real? And then the one he tried to take a charge where he had no business even trying to do it. And he was like, oh, I'll just shuffle my feet and let him run into me. And then here we go. It was pretty bad. I'm not going to argue against that, but there were some pretty ticky-tack fouls. There were 5 fouls in the first 65 seconds of the second half.
Yeah, there was a lot. And I remember even looking too and being like, oh, I guess Tillman's the guy because we were like 5 minutes into the game and Adams, Clark, and Jaren Jackson Jr. all had 2 fouls. Oh, and Dylan Brooks also. So it's like, who are they going to play? And then it ultimately also didn't really matter to the result of the game because the Grizzlies were just so much better than Minnesota and just absolutely massacred in that spot. But whatever, neither here nor there. I don't think I'm going to be playing Steven Adams next game. At least the good thing is this. He was like the most popular play in the first game that slate, and I had none of them that time. So I benefited on that slate. Not as much yesterday when he was a contrarian play. That one went very poorly for me. Let's see. Other guards. Oh, right. I wanted to ask you about Marcus Smart, who is currently projected to be the most popular play on the DK slate. Nearly 50% of the field getting to Marcus Smart on DK. On FanDuel, still really popular, not quite the same, but 33%. He played 36 minutes last game. I think he has the chance to play upwards of 40 in this spot because he did deal with a little bit of early foul trouble in that game. How are you going to be handling a chalky Marcus Smart?
He's unavoidable. 6,500. He is the one piece of chalk that's just impossible for me to get away from. 33%, 6,500 over on FanDuel. Yeah, but 5,800 on DraftKings, 43.6%. I really don't care. I'm getting a little bit over, not even a little bit. I'm 68%. So that's quite a bit of Marcus Smart that I have today. He's a 0.91 DraftKings points per minute here on the season. As you talked about, Peyton Pritchard pretty much out of that rotation, 8 minutes. Aaron Nesmith completely not there. It is going to be a lot of minutes for Marcus Smart here in this spot. Round 2, 36. I think there's minutes. There's more opportunity, I think, waiting in store for him. It's just impossible for me to imagine not playing a ton of him as opposed to any of these other chalky pieces.
Yeah, I'm also going to be on a lot of Marcus Smart. I think he's somebody else. I think he's just somebody who offers a really high floor. And I have a feeling that he's going to guard Kyrie Irving more tonight. This isn't going to matter much for fantasy impact, but Kyrie was so good in game 1, and Marcus Smart spent a lot of the early game on Kevin Durant. And I do wonder if they put Smart on Kyrie a little bit more. It's hard to speculate that in terms of fantasy production, but that would help Marcus Smart potentially stay out of foul trouble guarding Kyrie as opposed to guarding a bigger player in Kevin Durant. Looking at actually, we have a super chat here that just came through. So talk about that before rounding up the guards. From Jeff Williams, what are your minutes and fantasy productions for Trent today on DK for a high dollar GPP? Sometimes maybe good. He said sometimes maybe bad. That's not the word, but he's a little more wholesome than we are. But sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit, which is Gary Trent Jr., who all throughout the year, we saw him in spots where there were players out for the Raptors and he would dud when he was highly owned. Then there'd be other times where it's like, oh, look, nobody's playing Gary Trent. Oh, he's 8 for 8 for 3 in the first half. So he was a guy that was very hard to nail down this year. And it was no different last game. And because of what happened in that last spot, he was doubtful to play. He got upgraded to questionable, ultimately ends up getting ruled in. He played through an illness, clearly not himself, picked up 4 personal fouls in the first half, didn't play in the second half. I don't know how you project it. Just being totally honest, I don't know how you project him accurately. There's such a wide range of outcomes. I think he's a good tournament play because he is priced down, but it's a fool's errand to say you're confident in the amount of minutes or the production we're going to get in Gary Trent. But what are you doing with him?
Yeah, I'm not confident, but I look at the boom bust tool on DK and he's got a ton of leverage. I think every Raptor, I think their ownership, just with the confirmation, like I think we all assumed that Barnes was going to be out, but even that confirmation gives you the leeway and the go ahead to know that like, oh shoot, hey, Seong Kim hit a home run. That's bad. That is bad. I know that the guys right behind me had him as the punt instead of me. Oh, well. Baseball's done. But Chris Boucher, Gary Trent Jr., those are going to be guys that I'm just going to make large stands with. They're 5K and 4,500 here respectively. There's massive amounts of leverage on a 3-game slate going to these guys. There's consolidated minutes. Nick Nurse runs tighter rotations the most, and now you remove Scottie Barnes from it. He's not going to the ends of the bench to bring on, Thad Young to be playing limited minutes. It's just going to be these guys. So Gary Trent is one of those guys who just has to play a bunch. 7.4% leverage. That's third best on the entire slate. It literally goes Raptor, 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 Raptor in terms of positive leverage. Give me a lot of Gary Trent.
I don't know if I want to have a lot. Because he is projected for 20% ownership. Are you coming well overweight to that number?
Yeah, I have 48% of him.
It's hard for me. I just don't want my entire slate to be dictated on, is Gary Trent Jr. going to have diarrhea at halftime or whatever it is he's dealing with?
But here's the thing. Who else are you going to be going with? Because everybody else that you'd feel quote unquote more secure about is actually more popular. Alex Caruso, Danny Green, those are volatile pieces. So give me the guy that I think plays more minutes than both of them at 5K.
I prefer Seth Curry for a slightly cheaper price on DK.
Here we go. All right. I want the Seth Curry speech because Seth Curry, I have never, and I mean ever, gotten this guy right.
Yeah, it's as simple as this. He's not playing a crazy amount of minutes, but I think we have all the same concerns we have about Gary Trent, we have about Seth Curry, right? In terms of we don't know exactly how healthy he is. but he's going to be starting today. But Seth Curry is further removed from his injury than Gary Trent is from his illness. And the last two games, Seth Curry in the play-in game played 34 minutes. He played 30 minutes last game in game one against the Series. Keep in mind also, he got in foul trouble in that game. If it's not for the foul trouble of Seth Curry, I think we're back to seeing him play 33, 34 minutes. And the Celtics defense is going to be prioritized on trying to limit the offense of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant for good reason. And I think there's an opportunity for Seth Curry to get a lot of open looks from three, and he's cheap. Like, this is close to as cheap as we've seen him the entire year. Seth Curry is 4,500 on DK, and 2 weeks ago he was 5,900. So this is a really steep price decline, and it seems like he's playing the same role he was a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. I'm okay with it. It's just, you're talking about volatile chalk or volatile pieces, and he's
the same owner. He's the same
ownership. Yeah,
he has the same ownership as Trent.
I know, and that's why I'm saying I'm just taking Trent because I feel a lot better about it. I think the minutes are.
I don't feel good about either of them.
Yeah, I don't feel good about either of them either. Yeah, but you know what I mean. I just think that Gary Trent is going to play a boatload of minutes compared to what everybody's projecting him for. We have him for 33 minutes. How many do we have Seth Curry for? 31. I mean, that's all other things being considered. We know Seth Curry is going to be out there shooting. That's his job on the floor. He's going to be shooting, but you're contending with Bruce Brown and obviously Kevin Durant and obviously Kyrie Irving in terms of shot allotment. Gary Trent Jr., we've seen multiple times where he can be a guy that goes out and gets you 30, 35. It's uncomfortable. Everything's uncomfortable in terms of the cheap value on this slate. So I feel the worst best about Gary Trent Jr. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, I mean, they're both really similar. There's a lot of volatility. Seth Curry is just a little bit cheaper, so that's kind of my preference there. But I mean, I could reasonably, and they're also they're both very reliant on their 3-pointers falling. If Seth Curry isn't making his threes, he's going to suck today. If Gary Trent Jr. is making his threes, he's going to suck. By the way, people are bringing up the foul trouble thing. He didn't play in the second half. He was clearly sick, and I think the reason he was sick was the reason that he got into foul trouble and played the limited minutes. You have to kind of throw out everything that happened last game with Gary Trent from a production standpoint. It's just going to come down to, is he healthy or not today? And we don't know. Not just because we're not doctors, but I don't have a direct line to Gary Trent's cell phone number to be like, hey, dude, have you had diarrhea today? Have you been throwing up? What did you eat? Because it's weird, but that's kind of the stuff that matters when it comes to him being sick. But super chat here from David Carroll, over under 1.0 middle fingers from Kyrie Irving today. I am going to go with the contrarian option and take the under on that because he got fined last game.
Well, he got fined $50K. You have to understand, he knows that it would be more if he did it again, right? Like that's what logic would tell you. I mean, we're talking to the most illogical person that exists on planet Earth, perhaps, but I'm taking the under too. It's one of those things where I would like to see it again because it's like, oh shit, is this like a Mark Cuban sliding scale where it's just going to go up, 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 up every time that he gets fined for it? Maybe it's worth $100K to go boom and double Eli Manning somebody next to him, but feels like I'm going to take the under with you.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I've definitely dated people who are less logical. And the other thing, too, is, like, I don't think what Kyrie Irving did was that illogical. I mean, he's done plenty of things that are illogical. This one isn't that crazy. The idea where he's constantly getting cursed at by fans, like, cool, I'll flip them off back. I don't have an issue with it. As he said, he's just giving them the same energy they gave him. There's a lot of things I think you could gripe with Kyrie Irving about. This one I don't really care about.
Here's the thing, and this is my biggest problem for certain athletes, because Kyrie Irving, I don't think there's any question that he's well-versed, that he's a thinker. He likes to think. He's somebody that I think is very well-spoken. Maybe you would disagree with what he speaks about. I know I do from time to time, but for the most part, it comes down to like athletes thinking that because they can say something in a profound way, they automatically are exempt from their actions. And that is bonkers to me that Kyrie Irving is somebody that like thinks he deserves the benefit of the doubt. Oh, well, they were doing it to me, so I did it to them. A football player is not going to go tackle somebody in the stands just because it's like, oh, well, that's my job to do it anyway. So it's like, Kyrie, yeah, you're getting negative energy from them, but to a certain extent, if they're not saying horrible things about your family, if they're not saying whatever, you got to have a little bit of thick skin. I mean, think about the shit I take in YouTube every damn day. Like, come on, Kyrie, suck it up, put on your big boy pants and go play basketball. Let's go.
But the thing is, too, is we are allowed to talk back to people. The expectation is that Kyrie Irving is never allowed to or expected to talk back in any way.
No, he should talk back, but you can't flick somebody off. I mean,
I don't care. Like what? I get it. TV deals and whatnot. He gets fined because it's probably what's the censorship issue where the network could get fined or whatever. I don't care though. I'm an adult.
Kevin Durant, does he enjoy Kyrie Irving at this point? Do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's why he's there. Yeah, that's why he's there.
Have I ever told you my Kyrie Irving story? Have I ever said my Kyrie Irving story when he was pacing the Wynn Casino? Absolutely blackout after the Cavs championship. That was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Is there more to the story, or is that just the
so I stayed at the Wynn and I had a buddy that was able to like get us a nice spot at the Wynn. And it was during Summer League, and LeBron and Kyrie and everybody else came out. They had just won the title. J.R. Smith was shirtless around Vegas the entire weekend. That was where he just was like, screw it. And he came to Top Golf and like hit golf balls without a shirt on. It was fantastic. He was a really fun dude. But Kyrie Irving, we heard somebody at like 2 a.m. just pacing, and it was Kyrie Irving drinking like $1,000 bottle of red wine, just right out of the thing, just rapping in the hallway. We're like, oh, that's Kyrie Irving. And we walked back in our suite. That was it. That's the story.
Oh, you didn't say hi to him or anything? You should have started rapping with him.
Look at the screen. Look at the screen.
What? Just legendary Josh Engelman. Exactly. Were the people of YouTube offended? No, they understood that is what must happen to Jordan Klein at the start of every single show.
Oh man.
Yeah, you should have rapped with them. We've heard you rap
would crumble with 20,000 booing me. No, I've had that. Well, not 20,000, like 7,000 or something. Sioux Falls High School.
But either way, we've seen you rap before. You should have gone out and joined Kyrie. Some other super chats to get to. First from Tim Nesnadal. Best prop bet tonight. I am happy you asked because I'm going to go over to Odd Shopper. Free tool to use over at awesemo.com. Really useful for sports betting. In the I was going to say 30 minutes. In the hour that Eric and I are going to be on stream after this, we're going to talk about sports bets, watching the game along, all that. But what is the number one prop right now for us over an Odd Shopper? It is Gary Trent over 1.5 steals at plus 185. I understand it's really hard to feel confident in any kind of projections for Gary Trent, but we're talking about a sliding scale and the potential upside for him. Just considering that you're getting plus 185 money on over 1.5 steals, I could get behind that. What do you feel about that? Is the number one prop we have an Odd Shopper over 1.5 steals for Gary Trent?
Yeah, 35 expected ROI, 35% expected ROI. That seems really, really nice. You get that, the rebounds, Nicholas Claxton, 7.5. I'm not sure what to make of Nicholas Claxton minutes. Him and Drummond, this is going to be a difficult thing to figure out. I'm not sure what to make of it. Excited to talk center with you and see if there isn't something to mine out there. But I do think both of those stick out. And if you're in a spot where you can legally bet sports, congratulations. I live in California, but luckily our sponsor Prize Picks, we don't have access to the steals prop, but a lot of these rebound props seem to be pretty good. I'm more concerned with expected win percentage when it comes down to it. I know you're more concerned with expected ROI. I think they both stick out. So it kind of works out both ways. If you can get to 1.5 with plus 185 or Gary Trent, that's just kind of too good to pass up.
Yeah, and if you guys want access to any more bets or any other betting information, we do have our best bets package over in Discord. You could sign up using the link below in the description box of the video. It's something that we've been tracking all the bets. They've been profitable. We've got our group of guys, our data team, and guys like, Ben Rasa, Alex Baker that are posting bets regularly in there across all different sports. So check that out. Good way to make some money. Also, follow our @Awesemo Bets Twitter handle, where we're giving out one of our premium bets for free each day over on Twitter. So follow that, turn on the notifications so you know when the bet gets posted. Some more super chats to get to. First from Mike L, FanDuel single entry, Brown OG KD or Harden KD Boucher. All right, so KD's in both sides. Okay. So it's Harden Boucher or Brown OG. I prefer Harden and Boucher.
Harden Boucher, big time for me.
All right. From my boy, 08, Horford or Anunoby. I prefer Horford.
Horford or Anunoby. Horford for me as well.
Yeah. 42 minutes for Al Horford last game.
It's crazy.
It's so much playing time. Justin Alberto, is playing Wes Matthews bad and then Claxton or Drummond? I wouldn't like it's viable. It's not a high priority for me. If you're playing one lineup and you've Wes Matthews in, I would say don't do it. If you're playing a bunch of lineups and you just happen to have some shares of Wes Matthews, not the end of the world. I would not play him in a single entry lineup. Claxton versus Drummond. Of the two, I prefer Claxton today. Neither of them are high priorities. I think the Nets center rotation is very difficult to figure.
Yeah, this is probably the most difficult thing for me to figure on this slate because I think there's upside there. I think it's got to be Claxton based on what we've seen now. 29 and 31 minutes in the two games that have mattered for them. I think if you're going to be running out Al Horford, I think a lot of it just has to do with Daniel Tice ended up sitting down for quite a while, and it just became Al Horford at the 5. You want to put an athletic 5 over there as opposed to Andre Drummond, who isn't going to step out on Horford. It seems like what the Celtics are going to be doing going forward. I think that kind of shores up what I want to do with Nicholas Claxton. I know that was kind of what I was getting at with Odd Shopper, whereas like under 7.5, I think that might be a decent enough bet, but there's no doubt about it. I think for DFS purposes, I'm just playing a lot more Claxton than I probably should be at 4,700 on DK.
Super chat from Ben Anthony. Are you guys taking any shots at Kobe White today? He's in my player pool, but very low exposure. I have 6% of him. What did you do with Kobe White? I could see a path to upside for him, particularly if the game becomes a blowout and maybe he has to play extra run in the fourth quarter. Does a double-digit spread in the game? But he doesn't really move me that much. Are you higher on Kobe White than I am?
Kobe White, no, I'm not at all.
And do you have any exposure to him?
Let me see. I have 0 exposure to Kobe White right now.
6% for me. So
0.
Low priority.
I'm playing 40 lineups, so I mean it's going to be hard. He's 15.8% owned already. That's kind of just wrong to me. I'm just really heavy on these Raptors.
All right. So we have some questions to get to in our Discord chat. We're all caught up on super chats, but I want to ask, who are some of the forwards you have the most exposure to that we have not already talked about? Because I know for me, just one thing to start, I really wanted to get to Giannis today. Ultimately, I just wasn't able to get to at the rate that I wanted to. But other guys, Danny Green's going to be popular. I do have exposure to him. Then Zach LaVine, Bruce Brown, Pascal Siakam, Tatum, Boucher. Those are, and Horford too with forward eligibility. Those are kind of the core guys that I'm getting to at forward. But who are your most exposed small and power forwards?
Yeah, the Giannis thing, just like Sunday, there's going to be a game that Giannis goes for 70 at 20%. We're all going to be like, of course, we should have played more Giannis. But you can't be super results-based like that. I think it's going to be a lot easier for me to land on Jason Tatum and Pascal Siakam. I think that they're both there at 9K and 9,500 over on DraftKings. Just very simple to fit them into lineups. Getting a sub 10K Jason Tatum on FanDuel, another one of the priorities for me. I already said I'm playing a lot of James Harden too at 9,200, where you can play him at small forward over on FanDuel. So it comes down to there's only so much money I have to spend, and I'm making 40 lineups on each site. It's gonna have Giannis be somebody who falls by the wayside a little bit more. Chris Middleton is the most underpriced player, period, in terms of FanDuel pricing. I find him completely unavoidable at 6,800. I have a crazy amount of him over there. I think everybody should. It's just an unavoidable piece of chalk. And then Al Horford, you kind of touched on it there towards the end of our conversation there. He's the guy that I think I should have been the highest, way higher on, just because you look at this lineup. Daniel Tice, he was reacquired after being in Houston there for a hot second, came back to Boston. And yeah, he's more of an insurance policy. At least he was for Robert Williams here. He'll be starting again, but I don't think anybody's running out of the way to go roster Daniel Tice after the minutes they saw. But Al Horford, 41 minutes, is going to be playing a lot of that at the 5. Al Horford he smashes at the 5. We've seen that a number of times absent Robert Williams this season, playing a boatload of minutes, 6,400. I have a crazy amount of him on DraftKings.
Yeah, he played so many minutes last game, and it's going to be different when Robert Williams gets in the mix, assuming that the Celtics make it past the Nets, because Robert Williams isn't expected to play in this round. Chance to come back from knee surgery and play in the next round. At the very least, if the Celtics were to make a deep run in the playoffs, he would be back. But as long as he's not there, they're going to play Al Horford a lot of minutes because he's better than the alternatives. He started in the front court alongside Daniel Tice last game. Tice played 20 minutes. They're going to lean towards playing Horford. I don't know that he's going to play 42 minutes again, but just the chance that he plays close to that, and he doesn't have to. If he plays 36, he's still going to be a great play.
That's the thing. He doesn't have to. That's why he's such a good play, is that he could lose 5 minutes off the top of what he played, and he'd still be exceptional. Like,
he could lose 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He could lose 10 minutes and would
I have
still be one of the better.
65% of him, and I'm kind of talking myself in this moment into playing more.
Let's see. I have him. Yeah, right around you. Same. He's in more than half my lineups. I think that Al Horford's a really strong play today. And at the very least, very high floor because of the amount of minutes it looks like he's going to be playing. Let's get to some of these questions that we have in our premium Discord channel. First from, well, it would help if Discord didn't crash as soon as I brought it up, but here we go. All right. Question from our guy, Governaut. Boucher or Seth on DKGPP already have 3 Raptors. If you already have 3 Raptors, and if one of them is Precious Achiuwa, my lean there is towards Seth Curry. I also think if Gary Trent is going to play more, that probably means potential for a little bit less minutes for Boucher. I have fairly similar exposure to Boucher and Curry today, but since you already have 3 Raptors in there, I lean towards Curry, which is the answer for you, also knowing that he already has 3 Toronto players in the lineup.
I'm not opposed to getting to 4. It's hard because Seth Curry, I think you're just a lot. I mean, I ended up playing a little bit more of him. I'll go with Seth Curry with you just because of the caveat of 4 Raptors, but you have to be looking at this as a cheap play too, where there's going to be somebody who puts up 25, and it doesn't matter really where they're coming from. Chris Boucher can put up 25 fantasy points in 20 minutes. Like, that's something he's very capable of doing, and he just played 30. I don't think it's a caveat that it has to be, OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam or one of those guys and just playing 2 of 3. I still think I'm going to be making a pretty large stand at 48% on Chris Boucher. But Seth Curry, I totally understand if you've already got 3.
Yeah, and we've got a 3v3. Also, I really don't have an issue with either of them as options, but considering the lineup there, I lean towards Seth. We have a question from Perrin here. He's asking us a 3v3 Marcus Smart, Zach LaVine, and Danny Green, or Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, and Bobby Portis. Pretty easy, Smart, LaVine, and Danny Green for me.
Yeah, not even close.
All right. I think that answers all the questions we've here. If you guys have any more questions in the Discord chat, throw those in and I'll be answering them as we go along. And don't forget, we've got another hour and 9 minutes of Eric and I together. So hopefully the game starts relatively on time. That's been a total crapshoot with these NBA playoff games.
It doesn't really matter. We have an hour.
Well, no, except I would like the game to start on time just so I could watch it.
Can we producer can Jordan Klein right now, knowing that he has another hour with this? Because we're the 3 best friends that anyone could have.
We're the 3 best friends that anyone can. Look how excited Jordan is to be hanging out with us for the next hour. Jordan, come on. It's Danny Green Chalk night. You're not excited?
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Come on. Fine. He wants to celebrate the holiday. Any other forwards that we haven't talked about yet that are making it into your player pool, or any kind of real contrarian options?
What's the most ridiculous forward play you have in tournaments today? I have a ridiculous one. I'm just curious.
On the surface, it's Danny Green, but people are playing Danny Green. Ridiculous. Let me look through my. I guess some people would consider Gary Trent ridiculous after how he played last game.
Here's my ridiculous. Eric, it's not Gabe Vincent, because I felt better about Gabe Vincent than I feel about this guy. But if we're just thinking about Philadelphia, I think Paul Reed is kind of in play for a number of reasons. One, he's played 11 minutes here, and he's generally somebody where if he gets on the court, he's going to perform 1.1 fantasy points per minute. This is going to be a little bit of bully ball on Joel Embiid. There's paths for him getting in foul trouble, and they definitely have shown a proclivity to not play DeAndre Jordan. He's 3,100. He gives you the opportunity to punt to a player and a salary that I just absolutely don't think you can get to without clicking on him. He's the only guy that I have remotely playable, 3,100 and down on DK. I would want to zero out the salary to land on him. Maybe he gets you some other things. I don't think you're going to win because of him. But there's a path to like 14, 15 minutes. And you think about Matisse Thybulle, those 10 minutes, maybe they do go to Paul Reed in some kind of a capacity where he comes on the floor, maybe not playing alongside alongside Joel Embiid, but there's a path where if he's on the floor for 14, 15 minutes, 3,100, 1.1 fantasy point per minute, I have 8% of him. And he is just, it's not unrealistic to me to think that in a limited sample, he could still find a way to be optimal.
Yeah, I could see a path to that. It's really not enough minutes for me. I think the most likely scenario would have to be a blowout
or injury.
Yeah, blowout or injury. I mean, things that are kind of hard to predict. Frankly, I think the Raptors should be favored in this spot, but it's neither here nor there. And it's a close game. The spread's only 1.5 right now.
Correct.
So it's fairly close. It's not enough for me to want to bet it, but I do think the Raptors being a little bit undervalued in this spot. But yeah, I don't have a Paul Reed play tonight. I don't have somebody who's sub 5% that I'm getting to. What is the ownership right now on Paul Reed?
I guess he's at 5%. I would be surprised if that came through, but the big utility is that you can play him at power forward. Like Kem Birch is 3,100. I'm just looking, I kind of always do this in tournaments. This is just part of what I do when I wake up in the morning is I kind of see, is there anybody that I can make a case for that's completely unowned at the floor that gives me access to the studs, to multiple studs? And the only guy I could come close to making a case for that felt like he actually had upside was Paul Reed.
Yeah, and even that I don't think is all that realistic.
No, it's not. But that's why I said Gabe Vincent was realistic yesterday. He was 2% and he put up almost 21 fantasy points. So
yeah, Gabe Vincent was very good. Very good call.
I don't feel as confident about this as I did about that yesterday, but it's tournaments. Things can happen. I probably am not going to, it doesn't even matter if you play Embiid in some of those lineups, although one thing that would really benefit Paul Reed is an injury to Joel Embiid. That's more than a 1 out of 100 outcome. So it's just one of those paths where in tournaments, if you're looking for one guy to just get super, super different, I'd zero out my salary because he's the only one at 3,100 I'd want to have access to.
All right, let's round up the center position really quick. A lot of these guys we've talked about over the course of the show, and then like Al Horford is my most rostered center, and we talked about him as a power forward as well. But I think Vooch warrants consideration here. He remains really cheap, particularly on DraftKings. Precious Achiuwa, he is center eligibility. I think that he makes sense. A whole bunch on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Is there anything off the board you're playing at the center position? Like I think Brook Lopez is a good play, but he's not really quite off the board. I don't really have any insane takes at center. And like I said, most of them are guys we've already talked about.
Yeah. Do I see a path for a guy like Drummond or Claxton to go completely nuts? Yeah, I absolutely do. We're both kind of more on the Claxton side of things, kind of making that work just because we've seen massive minutes now in 2 games that they needed to win. I think that that's just going to be what they do going forward with him. This is a must-win spot for them. And it seems like Claxton's the guy. So I just kind of click on him a little bit more. I think center Vooch is just way, way, way too cheap at 7,700 over on FanDuel. I'm making a path to get to quite a bit of him there. I think him, if you're just talking about him or Horford straight up, I feel better about Vooch straight up. So just for FanDuel purposes, $100 more to get to Vooch. I prioritize him a little bit more. But for the most part, it's a pretty clear-cut center slate. We don't have to spend much time on it just because we know Joel Embiid is such a good play. The ownership's come down a little bit on DraftKings for him here, 10-6. You can play him at power forward. There's so many good power forward plays for this slate on FanDuel that I don't think it matters as much. He's landing in my center spot quite a bit there, but so is Vooch. Vooch is underpriced on both sites.
All right, let's hit on these super chats real quick before we get to lock. And don't forget, guys, Eric and I are going to be sticking around for an hour after lock, talking about prize picks, watching the games, talking about some bets as the games go on. First from Olrat 14, Achiuwa and Maxey or Levine and Boucher for DK Cash? Levine and Boucher.
Achiuwa, Maxey, Levine, Boucher. Going to be Levine, Boucher for me.
From You Don't Know JD, you're damn right I don't know JD. FanDuel single entry, Trent and Precious Achiuwa or Danny Green and Boucher. I prefer Trent and Precious Achiuwa there.
Same.
From Jordan Klein, please get us to 420 likes, please. He also left a super chat for $4.20. That is Jordan Klein. Looks a lot like our producer. Call me crazy. I see a similarity there. I know Jordan gets mad at us when we said that he looks like other people, but this super chatter has a profile picture. It looks quite a bit like Jordan Klein. But yeah, let's listen to this kind man who has left the super chat on the show. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. How many likes are we at, Jordan?
Past 420, we're at 442. So thank you guys.
Oh no, do we have to ask people to unlike now?
We might have to.
That's all right. Don't. We can't do that. We have to get to 4,200 now. That's the only way to do it. We just have to get all the way up to 4,200. We need everybody who's watching this video to have liked the video 3 times, and then we'll be sitting good. We have to get to exactly 4,200 likes. Anything else on this slate, Eric, that we've not yet talked about that are any loose ends you want to tie up heading into lock?
No. I'm just sad because I didn't win the $15 in baseball, but it was a good day. It was a good day still. We got Tampa Bay off to a hot start in baseball as well. Going to be fun to be watching some of these games going live, but especially the NBA playoffs. The NBA playoffs are my baby. This is the absolute best. Angels off to a hot start. Bases loaded. Top of the first, no outs. Oh boy, Odorizzi might not even get out. He's 3 walks already. This is going to be gorgeous. But yeah, excited to watch baseball. Excited to watch these NBA playoffs. Do you have a side for each one of these? What should we kind of bet something between you and I for all 3 games?
No, because I prefer to give out information that I would want people to bet on. Like I have Celtics for the series, but it's kind of past that point. If you had to bet any, I don't even want to say this because the answer for me is none of them. If I had to bet one side on any one game, it would be Boston spread. But no, I mean, we could look at Odd Chopper and see what props look good, but just in terms of outright games, I don't want to just give people information that I don't think is good.
I appreciate that about you, Greg. I appreciate that about you, but also I want to win stuff off of you. So it's like a you versus me thing. It's like, I don't know. We could have thought of something fun. I'm sure chat, we have 1.7K people watching. They're creative people. They could come up with something that you and I could have on the line.
Yeah, let's gamble with something fun. Our lives, right? That would be a good sweat. That would make the game fun.
The man with the golden gun.
Yeah, let's see. I'll do just something ridiculous. Like, all right, we're gonna bet with our lives. I have Kevin Durant over 60.
You know
points.
The best DFS sport, man.
Let's hit up Odd Chopper and then Odd Chopper and Prize Picks because we are now in the final hour of the show. Final hour, the midway point, probably the more accurate way to put it. I am logged into Prize Picks. I'm pulling up Odd Chopper right now, and we're going to try to find the best picks to give you guys over at Prize Picks, but also something, if you're looking for the actual best way to find value on Prize Picks, it's signing up using the promo code Awesemo, because not only could you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, we also get up to $100 bonus on your first deposit. That is free money. That is a good value to take advantage of. But now, Eric, we have to tell the people what they should be playing on Prize Picks. There's only 3 minutes until this Nets Celtics game starts. Is there anything really quick you want to throw out to the people before we talk about the other games?
Not necessarily. We've talked about a lot of the main components, just 3 games. You don't have to get carried away. Props become much, much more efficient. What you really want to be paying attention to is where can I find any sort of value, not necessarily something that always is going to be, oh, well, it's a win or a loss like on Prize Picks, but looking at the Gary Trent steals. I think that's something that we had already talked about where I think that stuff like that makes a lot of sense to really be invested in because there's value in it. They're kind of almost enticing you. Same thing with Alex Caruso. Do I like him as a play today at his ownership? No, I do not. But over 1.5 steals, I feel like when I was in Arizona, I bet that every single time he was on the slate because plus 120, I'm getting for something we project nearly 2 per, for him to nearly have 2 per game here, 58% expected win percentage. That's going to be the stuff that I'm looking at betting. But in terms of Prize Picks, we got to be very specific because, there's only going to be a slight edge, whereas during a regular season, we had more news to react to. So don't get carried away like we were a week ago.
Yeah, so I'm going to really quickly look at the fantasy points because that's just an easy one that I'll know that I'll look at and then just think about some of the guys I played on FanDuel and just kind of compare the Prize Picks over-unders relative to FanDuel price. And one thing that sticks out pretty quickly to me is Marcus Smart has an over-under of 33 fantasy points. I like the over on that. 36 for Horford feels about right to me. By the way, that goes to show Al Horford how good of a value play he is, particularly on DraftKings. The over-under 36 fantasy points here. The one I like the most, though, is going to be the Marcus Smart over 33. Any other fantasy point numbers here that you like from this first game? We've got 2 minutes until it locks.
What is Bruce Brown? Bruce Brown's looks really low. And again, there's been a lot of value on the fantasy department.
Agreed.
Bruce
26.
Brown is just a smash.
Yeah, 26.
Smash. I'm getting this in now.
Over for Marcus Smart, over for Bruce Brown. Let's see. As for other ones, I don't want to touch Drummond or Claxton when it's just a 50-50 what numbers they're going to have, because that's a really tough one to predict. If I had to take a side, I think 26 fantasy points seem a little high for Nick Claxton. I would lean towards the under, but once again, I don't really have a great feel for what the minutes are going to look like there. Let's see.
Horford, Smart, Bruce Brown, putting all of those in a beautiful parlay.
Okay.
Well,
so are you taking the over or the under for Horford?
Well, over 36 fantasy points.
I think it's pretty accurate. I have it slightly towards the
over.
Marcus
Smart one. I'm trying to put one in because I want to post it on Twitter, and I want somebody to have an opportunity to win with us. Is what I want.
How about if you go to James Harden?
Oh, Gary Trent is at 20 fantasy points. Come on now. 20.
Do you think it's too high or too low?
I think that's way too low. I have him projected for 26.
Okay. I have him just slightly over 20.
That's sad to me.
I was pretty conservative with his minutes.
Here we go. I'm putting those in together. Marcus Smart, Bruce Brown, Gary Trent Jr., 3 fantasy score overs, 100 to win 500. Let's go, team.
I would have gone with, the one I was going to say, James Harden, 44 fantasy points. I like that over.
Shit, I didn't even see that. I already bet this, though. This is in, and it's going to lock in like 30 seconds, so I can't cancel it and still get it in time. That's what.
That's one I like. I mean, we've got time. We could talk about other ones here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I was saying that to be able to react to getting to the early game as fast as I could.
Yeah, I think. Okay. So the early games are now off the board. Let me pull up the stream as well. I guess I should pull that up on my iPad and close the baseball games.
Now we can have them all going right now. Have them all going.
Yeah, well, I'd like to have a little bit of bandwidth to do the show with also, or else I'll just become a robot and it'll just be, I mean, for my standpoint, I don't have any issue just sitting here watching sporting events for the next hour, but I think it could make for bad television at a certain point. It's like, how come Greg isn't talking or looking at the screen at all when I'm just only watching baseball and basketball at the same time on all my alternate screens in front of me? But let's see, pull this up because I assume this game should be tipping off relatively soon. Do you have any rooting interest from a betting standpoint here outside of like player props?
None. Well, I have the year long. I ended up getting on a little bit of Boston with you, not as much as I would have liked to. I ended up betting Brooklyn when I was in Arizona as well. I believe they're up to 14-1 now in the markets, going down 1-0. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. They're down 1-0. It shouldn't have moved double the number. It went from like plus 700 to plus 1400. Ben Simmons is announced to be coming back for game 4. I just think that's too long for an NBA championship. And yeah, do they have a brutal path? Sure. But we were just looking at Brooklyn being the favorite entering or being one of the favorites in the entire NBA. They were lower than like a plus 600 number, plus 700 number. And now they're up to 14-1 just because they're down 1-0. Sure. If they go down 2-0, you're probably in trouble, but then the value is going to be crushed out of this number.
Yeah. So we could discuss this because we have the time here when we're talking about sports betting and whatnot. I think the initial number on Boston was horrific. I think it was a terrible, terrible number. I think that if you're asking me who would win a series between Brooklyn and the other top teams in the East, I would favor the Celtics over the Nets, which I have. I would favor the Bucks over the Nets. I would favor the Heat over the Nets, and I would favor the 76ers over the Nets. I just don't think they're that good. If Ben Simmons comes back and is playing full minutes, it's a different story. That feels unlikely to me. Even when he comes back, I don't think he's playing a massive amount of minutes.
Yeah, I don't think it's a massive amount of minutes, but what I think it does is it makes clutch time, crunch time here for Jason Tatum a little bit different. Stop it, Jordan Klein. Don't give me that side eye crap.
What did he do?
He was just like, I can't say the words out of his mouth correctly. I'm Jordan Klein. It's fine. I'm fine.
Yeah, should we put Jordan on screen and make him talk on the holiest of holidays?
Dude, bro, chill.
Dude, bro, chill.
Crunch. Yeah, I'm going to put you on crutches time. That's what's up. Crunch time. It's going to get interesting. Ben Simmons, confirmed defender of multi-positions, and he's really good at it. Even 24 minutes. You could do the Steph Curry template, play him the last 6 minutes of every quarter. That could make things very, very interesting.
By the way, this game is not starting anytime soon. They're about to start player introductions.
Why did they do this crap to me then? It had the little timer going down. Also, ASAP Rocky got arrested. What happened?
I don't know.
It's Rihanna's lady. I love Rihanna.
Is this? But we would need Jordan to play like one of those like TMZ or like pop culture, like do, and then like we read off the news of whatever happened. What's the arrest here? What happened?
I don't know. I just saw it on Twitter here. Sorry, I was just posting this. You know the drill.
He got arrested at an airport.
Got arrested in an airport. What did he do? It's a connection with
I'm
a
gonna guess.
shooting?
If I had to guess, drug possession.
It was a shooting. It was a shooting in
at
Hollywood
an airport
in November 2021. Oh God, that's bad. I just love Rihanna so much. And she just did like the coolest, like, I don't know. It's weird to be a guy and just be like, oh, pregnancy photography or whatever. Like she looked so bomb. Like she was in France for like a Gucci thing. And I was like, oh, I just love Rihanna so much.
Yeah,
love you, honey.
Indifferent to, I am indifferent to pop culture news, and I'm not opinionated on Rihanna's pregnancy photo shoot. Jordan, do you care about Rihanna's pregnancy photo shoot that Eric's all amped up about?
I'm just proving that I'm I actually do really like Rihanna.
Yes, Rihanna is a GOAT.
She's a GOAT, man.
All right, so you enjoyed her pregnancy photo shoot also then?
Just saying, it's a weird thing to say that I'm not like going out and saying that it was my favorite thing I've ever seen. I'm just saying that it was like, all right, this chick's fire. She's fire. What? Jordan Klein. What?
Eric's got posters up on his wall of pregnant ladies. Hey, I mean, whatever floats your boat.
This is not where I wanted to go with this hour-long show. We can't go for another 15. We can't regurgitate enough pregnancy jokes for the next 25 minutes.
You don't want us to, or I can't, because those are totally different things.
She could stand under my umbrella, Ella. A.
All right, you have saved yourself, and now the chat is going wild. By the way, those player introductions were quick, so it looks like the teams are going to be tipping off before too long. When we get this going, I'll try to bring up how much time is on my screen and on yours as well. So maybe we could have some kind of synchronicity. I know it's going to be hard because I'm streaming it. So already if you're streaming the games, it's going to be behind people who are watching on live TV, but then also there's a YouTube delay and an internet delay. So there's a pretty good chance that anything that we're saying here is probably going to be like 30 seconds or so behind people that are watching. But what's going on your screen right now?
Just people saying that I have a fetish, and that's not at all what happened. That's what's going on my screen.
Number one,
right
it's
now.
Exactly what happened. But then number two, I meant a basketball game.
Yeah, nothing's happening yet. I've got that on my
no tip off. They're kind of starting to gather towards center court right now, though. Let's hit up some more prize picks, look at Odd Shopper, and try to find what other props we give to the people. I'm going to refresh it so that we no longer have the first game of the slate showing up. Prize picks. If people are building player cards, Eric, for the later games now, so the two other games we've not yet looked at the props for, what are some things you'd be building your prop cards around?
Yeah, we've talked about a number of these spots where you're talking block steals. This isn't necessarily something that I would probably want to go too crazy with in terms of like a parlay or putting it together. But each individual bet, the Gary Trent Jr. steals, the Alex Caruso steals, I think both of those really stand out. Let me get Pascal Siakam on the card here too. Plus 120 on 9.5 rebounds. That's standing out with a 56% expected win percentage, which isn't good enough for prize picks purposes, but it surely is good enough for betting purposes. 24% expected ROI in that department. I'm telling you, again, I think we really did mine out the best things to get to being the fantasy scores, because some of these props are just so efficient to me. So on prize picks specifically, I really do see fantasy score as the one that's the most likely for me to go to. Gary Trent Jr. at 20, that is way too low. I know you said you were barely over 20, but I'm well over 20 in that department. Even Alex Caruso, where you do get 3 points for the steals over here on prize picks. I think if you're going to do like the power play, probably not going to put it on the card. I've already talked about in tournaments, I'm shorting Alex Caruso, but 19 fantasy points feels pretty low on a site where you get 3 for steals. So, sports betting purposes, like the over of the 1.5 steals, but you can still kind of isolate it in terms of the fantasy score over on prize picks.
All right. So the game is tipped off. I want to know right now on my screen, 11:04, 11:03, 11:02, 11:01. Where are you? Time wise.
10:39.
Oh my God. So you are way ahead of me.
Yeah,
Let me try.
I'm living in the future out here on the West Coast.
Oh my God. And that's not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be in the past. Let me try putting it up on my other screen here instead of my iPad. Maybe that'll be at a better time point, because or else you're a full, 30 seconds ahead of me. It's
Bruce Brown for 3. Al Horford foul. We don't need that. Foul,
right.
Not foul. Got it.
All right. So here we go. I got it on my computer instead, and it's at 10:31 in the stoppage. Is that the same for you?
Yes.
All right. So we've got, I'll tell you when Bruce Brown shoots his first free throw, and then we'll know where we are. All right. Pass to Bruce Brown, 1 dribble, 2 dribbles, and shot up. How close are we in time wise?
We're pretty close.
Okay, cool.
I just saw make it.
That's a little bit better than where we were at before. Mm-hmm. Now let's go back to Odd Shopper, go back to Prize Picks. And then after this, we could look at also just kind of general bets that kind of stand out for us on Odd Shopper. You talked about Caruso before. We brought up the Gary Trent one. Anything else from a Prize Picks perspective that we've not yet talked about? I said I like James Harden over 44 fantasy points a whole bunch. You said you like Gary Trent. I'm a little bit less bullish on that one just because I don't know what the minutes look like. He played under 10 minutes last game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the playing time looks like. Vooch, where do I have his?
Here's the thing with no Scottie Barnes. That's the other part. He would have played 30 minutes. We got to stop. He would have played 30 minutes if he was actually not poopy pants.
But he still might be today. He was listed as questionable earlier.
I know, but he's not poopy pants. I think he can actually do some stuff about poopy pants. So we're
maybe
okay.
We have no clue. We're guessing. It's possible.
I'm wearing my poopy pants so we could do a 2-hour show.
That's true. I mean, that's a full hour without using the bathroom, or 2 hours without using the bathroom. That's a tall ask for an older gentleman like yourself.
Holding.
Super chat. Super chat from Corey Bomber. Trent and Maxey or Vooch and Boucher for DK? I prefer Vooch and Boucher.
Vooch and Boucher.
We didn't really talk about it much, but what did you do with Tyrese Maxey today? I haven't played him much in this series. That's clearly not been the right side of him to be on. But the way that the Raptors have been playing defense in the series, it seems like they don't want Embiid to beat them, and they're kind of okay with anybody else beating them today. So as a result, we've seen a whole lot of usage and shot attempts go to Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. Did you get to much of them today? Because I'm underweight and I'm a little anxious about it.
Well, you should be, because he's been like a must-have at the beginning of this series. We have him projected for 40 minutes, so it's hard for me at 6,900, Tyrese Maxey, a 0.9 fantasy point per minute producer, to just say you should have none of him. But there's just so many guys, whether it's Drew Holiday, Fred VanVleet, that he just has to pretty much beat straight up. And that's just difficult for me to imagine. And eventually, fingers crossed, we're going to have the James Harden eruption game. I think we're just getting a little bit better opportunity going to him. The nice thing about Maxey is he's under 10% over on DK, but I think at his price, he should be, because there's such a floor attached to it that I don't think people are really recognizing.
We're 2.5 minutes into this game. It is 9-0. Bruce Brown has scored all 9 of those points. Let's see. Am I over or underweight to Bruce Brown today? Please be over.
Bonkers.
What's his own? What is his own?
I have 0 on FanDuel. So
of Bruce Brown?
Maybe close the laptop on that one. I definitely have. He's in my main lineup on DK. I know that. And then my 40 lineups, I've got 38%. So I'm over on
Nice. All right. So in the $40 single entry, Bruce Brown is 11% owned, and he's in my lineup. All right. Not a bad start. Bruce Brown is now up to 9 points, a steal and a rebound, 12.75 fantasy points in 2.5 minutes for Bruce Brown. That'll work.
That'll work. This is good stuff.
Is anybody in this game? Is anybody else in this game going to score other than Bruce Brown? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
I think so too.
This is Bruce Brown's team.
Yeah, I mean, we do like to react a lot to the first couple minutes of the game. And based on what I've seen so far, there's no reason to think anybody other than Bruce Brown is going to score the basketball today.
Bruce Brown, or close the laptop. 2.5 minutes in, 12.75. It's actually, we're kind of bordering in on this. Also, is there a player on this entire slate who's had more like what in the absolute living F games in the last month than Bruce Brown?
Maybe Gary Trent on both ends.
Yeah. Ooh, I see what you did there. That was
no, but it's true. How many times has Gary Trent this year been a chalk play where everybody's out for the Raptors and he does absolutely nothing, and then the next game everybody comes back for the Raptors and he makes like 10 out of 8 3-point attempts and just makes no sense. Like, how many times have we seen that from Gary
Often.
Trent this year?
A lot. Also, I want you to guess. If you haven't seen this yet, let me know. But have you seen his Marcus Smart's ownership in the $20 on DK?
I assume it's very, very high.
I just want you to guess what it is.
65%?
62.8%. That was a great guess. I mean, that is a gigantic number.
Yeah, I mean, well, we had him projected for 50% ownership, and a lot of times in the bigger fields, we just see a little bit sharper ownership. So it's not crazy surprising for me to see him be that highly owned. He was one of the better points per dollar plays, just projection wise. Yeah, who's rooting for out? What's weird?
No, I'm looking at some of the ownership from this early game and seeing how much, like, Kyrie Irving, I thought was the worst play on the slate. I thought Kyrie Irving was a terrible, no good, very bad play. We saw Kevin Durant basically it's Kevin Durant. He's always going to be involved, but he had 34 fantasy points last game. It was an atrocious outing for him by all measures. 23, 4, and 3 for Kevin Durant is not good in 41 minutes. I expect Kevin Durant to really cut into Kyrie Irving quite a bit. 14% Kyrie is more than actually I was expecting in DK. And I know there's a ceiling there, but there are so many players that I had projected for about the exact same amount of fantasy points as Kyrie for like 1,500 and 2K less. So it's like, why would I just thought people playing Kyrie were paying the rake on DK today.
Yeah. So here's where I'm going to agree and disagree. When I was doing the strategy show with Adam this morning, I was looking at and said, because Kyrie was only projected for 5% ownership and it was 4% this morning. And I said, if he's actually going to be 4%, I think he's a better than 4% chance of landing in an optimal lineup. But at the same time, I was thinking that there's just no way that people are going to be building lineups and not considering Kyrie. By the way, is that Drummond hurt?
I'm not seeing it here right now. I have to choose between, I'm going back and forth between YouTube and the telecast because I can't put it on my TV and behind me. So I keep rotating between the two.
Well, that would also be, what if you put YouTube chat on your TV and you just turned around to answer questions? Can you do that?
I could. I mean, what do you want? I don't need our YouTube channel. We've done so good to get up to 76,000 subscribers. By the way, if you're not a subscriber and you're hanging out with us, why wouldn't you want to be? Greg, he's a fun guy. He likes the game of basketball.
That was a not bad impression of Kawhi Leonard's laugh.
Thank you.
Can you do that one more time? And that actually might frighten some people. If anybody's kids watching, that would definitely frighten them. So maybe don't do it again. We do have a super chat from Weatherman7, who's been big on. I called it a pear emoji yesterday, and people got mad at me. They said it's not an emoji. Jordan's confused by it. That's not bad, Jordan.
Thank you.
All right. Bucket and one for Al Horford there. So anyway, Weatherman7 left a super chat. Just asked, how's it going? Good. It's early in the slate. I've got Bruce Brown in my single entry lineup, which
Al Horford and one. Let's go. Oh, he missed the free throw. Piece of shit.
Wait, so you're behind me now because I had said Al Horford and one before.
I didn't hear you. I wasn't paying attention.
No.
Bruce Brown, 16.2. What in the ever living hell?
So what would you call this thing? Weatherman7 super chat. It has the pair that says how's it going? It looks like the pair is, I don't know what the hell the pair is.
It's not the color of a pair, so I see where.
No. People were upset I called it an emoji, but what else would you call it?
Yeah, it's an emoji thing. It's like a fun emoji, if you want to call it that. Sticker season. I don't know. Super sticks.
I don't like calling it. I don't like calling it a sticker though. It's not maybe technically.
Al Horford block. Give me that.
There we go.
Let's go, Big Al.
Right. By the way, by going back and forth between different screens, I feel like I'm lagging a little bit. But I've got Jason Tatum going to the free throw line, I think now, or was that not a shooting foul?
Seth
or they call
it
timeout?
Yeah, it's a foul.
Oh, they called. I wasn't sure if it was a shooting foul or a foul on the floor. It doesn't matter. They're going to timeout now. So early going.
Foul.
Yeah, it's also hard to kind of know exactly what's going on when there's no sound on here. So I don't know if they're reviewing something now or if this is. Were they reviewing for a flagrant?
I have no idea right now. Again, I have no sound.
Yeah, neither do I.
Going back and
Let's
forth.
speculate.
I ended up getting 10th in baseball. That's sad. It was a better lineup than that. It's okay. It's okay.
That is one thing. People ask us a lot about that in terms of, finishing at first in tournaments first. The difference between finishing 10th and finishing first, in general, you probably built a really similar lineup to that person. It just kind of comes down to variance. So if you are, this is just kind of like a general overarching thought, but if you're building lineups and you're consistently getting, say, more than 1% of your lineups in the top 1%, if like 2% of your lineups, something like that, are top 1% lineups, you're going to win eventually. There's just not a lot you could do with variance in terms of, like, Eric is fourth in the $15 for MLB earlier. He has one at bat left from Alec Baum. People behind him have one at bat left from Ha-Sung Kim. Alec Baum grounds out, Kim homers. And that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. 4th and 10th. And it would have been nice if what's his face didn't get the win from San Diego, Gore. He didn't invent the internet, by the way. But Mackenzie
Gore or Al Gore?
Mackenzie Gore. He might have invented the internet, little baby. But yeah, he got the win. So a couple people passed me from that too. Whatever. I mean, if you have a flatter payout structure, I mean, the difference between 10th place that I got in first place is literally $19,800.
We also got, okay, so they're coming back out on the court here. We'll see what's happening in a second. We got a super chat from Bat Jones 22. Any love for Kevin S? As always, Kevin S is one of the best plays on the slate. Eric, Kevin S, any love today?
Oh, Kevin Stadler, every day, twice on Sunday. Too bad he's not in the team event here. Nobody wanted him as a partner. That's sad times. Also, Ken Birch is starting. We might need to talk about that.
All right, so we've got this Raptors starting lineup is... Why did I not get an alert on my phone yet? I think that what is going on?
It came through on Toronto. It came through on a beat writer. And then I think somebody tweeted it out. Let me double check. But I just saw that Ken Birch is starting. Somebody also said it in chat, which made me double check. And they are correct.
Okay. Yeah,
we have Van Vliet, Gary Trent Jr., Anunoby, Siakam, and Birch.
Yeah. So I think we have to expect that Kem Birch, not that he necessarily becomes viable, but that I do think now this slightly lessens the appeal of guys like Chris Boucher and Precious Achiuwa. Does it change your outlook on them?
Boucher, I'm still willing to roll with a little bit, but I think you are really walking a tight line with Precious Achiuwa.
What? You don't think Achiuwa is going to be ahead of Boucher in the rotation, though?
I do, but what happens when you get them right is more of the question. Like, just from a fantasy point per minute perspective, if I get Chris Boucher right, I'm winning tournaments at this point, especially if people lower on the ownership there. Precious Achiuwa, I still need him to do 0.87 FanDuel points per minute as opposed to Boucher 1. I just kind of still am going to be leaning with Boucher, but it's going to be harder to get to really either of them now. I'm kind of rerunning everything and
yeah, I'm doing that as well. Let's see what comes out. It's definitely going to lower my exposure to them, no doubt.
I will say, Ken Birch, 3,100, better play than Paul Reed, which I had said before.
Good point. Yeah, because
Ken
Birch is somebody I had 0% of before. I'm not going to have. I don't have Ken Birch. I'm not going to have Ken Birch projected super highly or anything.
Yeah, I'm going to get like 5%, I think here. Oh, Duke just came in. What's up, Dukers?
Oh,
there
he's
he
talking
is.
to you.
What's up, little man? Hey.
Has he gone rogue? He wants to join on the show now?
Now, here's what we got to do. So we've been trying to figure out what to do in terms of like how to keep him quiet while I'm on shows. And we got a good hour and a half in here, which is good because my wife is at a movie premiere. She's fancy and stuff like that. And so I have these dog treats from our local bar, and he's obsessed with these. And so I can give him one of these, and he will literally just go chase these forever. So there's a couple shows I've been on, and this is the first time anybody's ever caught me because he came like right up to the chair. But I've been feeding him treats constantly throughout shows for like the last 3 weeks to keep him quiet.
Nice. I found that worked with Mike Lawrence also. I hope Mike's watching. I love him. if
oh my God.
You know, it's an unfortunate.
Good boy, Mike. Good boy.
You know, it's an unfortunate side effect of lowering my exposure to these Raptors guys. I'm ending up with more of Danny Green now.
Oh, here you go. Here's your treat, dog. Good, Mike. Good, Lawrence. Oh my God. That is, Greg, you've had some good ones in your day. That's the funniest thing you've ever said in your life.
Please tell me Mike's in chat right now.
Oh, man. Good, Mikey.
Nope.
Good, Mikey. No. Oh.
All right. So I just updated my NBA lineup. So I'm a little out of touch with what's going on in the basketball game right now.
Just a stray bullet to Mike Lawrence. He's not in chat at all.
He's always in chat too, which is really upsetting because it's way more fun to throw jabs at people when they're in chat. But all right, let me get caught up on what the fantasy action's been here. It is, by the way, right now 18-8 on my screen, a stoppage in play with 5:48. It looks like in the second quarter. In terms of fantasy points here, Bruce Brown, 12 points, a steal, a block, and a rebound. Is it too early to say that Bruce Brown is going to be optimal tonight?
Bruce Brown has got a very high likelihood. If we were looking at the boom bust tool right now, let me just tell you his chances of being optimal would be in the 60% category, which is drastically different than what it was before this slate started. I will also say the underrated part is, which player do you want other than Kevin Durant in your lineups right now? I'm going to say 0 of them.
Well, Bruce Brown.
I said other than Bruce Brown. I was saying,
okay.
He was a given, but I'm saying Kevin Durant, like he's the only other guy doing jack squat right now.
I mean, what the game for like Horford isn't an abomination right now.
No, he is not. He is not. He is not. The Infinity Gauntlet. He's got one of the stones.
And then also, I mean, Tatum with Daniel Tyson foul trouble. I think you could say you might want Grant Williams right now.
Okay.
I know he hasn't done anything yet, but just from a standpoint of, hey, look,
nobody's
Al Horford,
done anything.
Yeah, Tyson has gotten into early foul trouble. Grant Williams is on the court. He could play extended minutes for cheap. So I wouldn't be upset if I had him. Tatum is 2 points and 2 assists, but he also checked out fairly early. So that's not really the end of the world. He played 44 minutes last game. I would assume that based on the rotation pattern from last game, he's probably going to check in like 2 minutes and then maybe play the entirety of the second half. So I don't mind. Oh, Ben Simmons isn't wearing the most egregious outfit today, only slightly egregious. He wore clothes that made some kind of sense. So which players do you have exposure to in this game that you're upset that you have exposure to right now?
Marcus Smart is not great right now. It's not great. I'm okay with Al Horford. I think we're going to be fine with Al Horford. I mean, I have 0% Kyrie. I still think everybody's paying the rake with that, which feels good.
Yeah,
I'm okay. I never was playing Andre Drummond today.
Oh,
Kevin Durant is playing well, and I don't have him. Al Horford is going to work out, I think, all right with us. Marcus Smart, I'd probably want less of him, but I still think he'll be all right.
You know who's not off to a bad start? Seth Curry is 3 points, an assist, and a block.
Mm-hmm. But 2 turnovers on FanDuel, which is less ideal.
It's not a good start, but it's not like terrible either. I'd be like, okay, that's okay for Seth Curry to this point. And then also, if his ankle looks good, I think we could get like 38 minutes or something from Seth Curry.
I feel like I'm just catching my breath. Like 5 minutes of just pain.
How's Duke doing right now?
Oh, just chilling. I don't want to acknowledge because otherwise he'll start barking again. Again, this is a magician's trick here. The camera, it's set up in a situation where he can come in and out. The door can stay open. And for the most part, he won't like come right up to the chair because I've got like a bone perfectly situated there for him. But now had to do the treat thing, and we'll maybe do it again. At the very end, if we get more likes, I'll bring Duke up to say goodbye. I'll bring Duke up.
Well, it's which, by the way, you guys should do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And the other thing too is you could tell that Eric's a little more experienced now in terms of training a dog and working around it. Because when Eric first got the puppy, it was a disaster the first time he came on screen. He was knocking stuff over. Eric didn't know how to keep him in check. So you could see that Eric's learning the habits of Duke a little bit. Is it getting easier now?
Vet move. Yeah, it's gotten a lot easier. I mean, part of it is he's just getting out of the puppy phase. He's a little over 5 months now. So it's going to happen a little bit more. But for the most part, he's just such a good, well-behaved pup. We got pretty lucky in that department. Also, just knowing that if you can kind of take them on a longer walk in the afternoon. So I'll kind of listen to, like today, I was able to go for a walk and listen to the MLB live before a lock and kind of take in a little bit of that as I was going along. I listened to a little bit of the Padres game and the Dodgers game on MLB TV. So that kind of stuff, taking him for a longer walk, tire him out so that I can get on these shows and do an hour and a half, 2 hours, and he'll probably just sleep through the whole thing.
Is there, shit, there was something I just totally blanked on. I saw something that caught my eye on the screen. I was going to ask you something, just totally slipped my mind, just old man senior moment. But either way, I'm going to go through some of the baseball scores right now. What are your rooting interests for the baseball games? Like which teams do you have the most stack exposure to? And then also, I think we could look at some of the prize pick stuff for baseball to see if anything stands out.
Yeah, I ended up on some Jordan Lyles in my life. Thank you to Terry McBride. We actually went back and forth a little bit, and he gave me the goods in that department. I played about 8% of him on FanDuel at 6K. The DraftKings slate was just so bad that I just took any money I would play over there, and I just played the $5 on FanDuel and maxed that out. And Dalton Jeffries has 27. Jordan Lyles has 24. So apparently that game is just magnificent for stacking at the moment. But Francisco Mejia, 0.6% owned. Wind was blowing out there in Wrigley, and I thought that made for a really intriguing spot. So I'm cheering big time for Tampa Bay. They're off to a really nice start, up 5-0 through 3. But basically just Mejia and Arozarena are the guys you want in that department. I'm cheering against Sandy Alcantara. I ended up with like 2% of him. I knew he was going to be pretty popular. And Erod just out there getting unlucky again, 15 fantasy points, 2-1 Yankees that we've gotten early going. And then the Angels were the most leveraged stack to get to on the FanDuel slate. Have a ton of them, even though you can't play Ohtani today, which is always a bummer, but they're up 6-0. Just kind of death by a million cuts. Need some of those guys to start putting up some big numbers, but cutting into that Houston bullpen probably won't hurt.
Nice. So I think my rooting interest right now is going to be for San Francisco Giants stacks because Chris Bassett is like 50% owned on DraftKings.
What?
So I got to a good amount of 49ers. The San Francisco Giants is leverage, and they put up 3 runs in the first inning, and looks like all of their players are like 2 to 5% owned. So that's probably going to be my main rooting interest right now. We have a super chat from Abel Ramos, and then we'll talk about prize picks and some of the baseball stuff we could find. But from Abel, he's asking us, "Hey fam, I'm off to a great start and don't want to F it up. What do we do with Toronto? Is Siakam now looking optimal, seeing that Birch has no usage?" So I already liked Siakam a lot, and I still like Siakam. This doesn't really change anything for me as it pertains to him. I liked him before, still like him now. What about you?
Yeah, Siakam's still going to stand out. He's too underpriced on just about everywhere. And the main thing that this hurts is just kind of those backup rotational guys. You're looking at Boucher. You're looking at him just being a very, very contrarian type play now. And if you think the ownership's still going to be there, I don't think it will be in something like the $20 on DK. But like $1 or the 50-cent mini max or stuff like that, people are still going to have Boucher. I'm more inclined to be hitting eject on that. Precious Achua definitely hitting eject either way. And Kyrie Irving's heading to the locker room.
Oh, this could be for many. Also, because I'm looking at the baseball and don't have the game up. What was the Kyrie injury? I just looked at my screen.
I didn't. It just came, I got the notification here and that came through that he was Kyrie taking a shit. Okay.
All right. So what, the thing about this, when we get those reports that players go to the locker room, it's not uncommon that it's just for a bathroom break, but I'm going to look online because I was not watching the game at the time it happened. Was this an actual, can anybody in chat tell us, was this an actual Irving injury? Let's see.
I need another monitor is what I'm learning. I got to order another iPad. I'm just going to get another iPad.
All right. So here we go. Okay. So it's prayer related.
Oh, interesting. There we go.
Yeah. So that's what somebody, it looks like this is prayer related, not injury related.
Got it.
So nothing I would bet on that. Were you surprised that Kyrie played as well as he did in the first game with everything involving Ramadan? Because just from this standpoint, I thought that, not eating whatever, but just the idea that he is playing a basketball game where he's expected to play north of 40 minutes and is not able to drink water at all over the course of the game before or during, I thought that would be problematic, and it apparently wasn't for him. There was a part of me that was like, do I consider betting Kyrie Irving unders just because of that? It was something, luckily, I didn't end up doing because it was too narrative based. But I thought that could have been problematic for him, and it just wasn't. Did that weigh on you at all for game one?
I thought about it. We had talked about it, not in our group chat, but I think we had talked about it on a stream where we kind of like, oh, well, maybe this can affect him in the afternoon, but it's not his first time. This isn't the first time that he's ever had to play in this kind of a situation. It's not his first Ramadan. So
no, it isn't. It is his first.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. He converted. This is his first time.
I thought there was at least like he had gone through something where he had something similar. We had talked about this with Enes Kanter too, where he played at elevation when he was the backup for Denver there. I guess he was playing for Portland, but they were playing in Denver, and he wasn't able to drink or eat anything during that game too. So it's not the first time that's come through, but obviously Enes Kanter, a little bit of a different role than Kyrie Irving on their respective teams at that time. Yeah, just slightly.
There was never a point where we needed Enes Kanter to go out and play, like 40 minutes. But I believe also the other thing is the other one is Jaylen Brown also observes Ramadan. So he was also somebody who was not able to eat or drink water during that game, which is something also I do think makes a difference when it's this being a night game at sundown, when they are able to drink water and they're able to eat food or snacks or whatever during the game. It is a different situation than the day game where they weren't able to at all. But neither here nor there, because Kyrie still absolutely destroyed last game. The Nets still ended up losing. But how do you feel? Are the Celtics going to come back in this game down 11 points? How do you like their chances to come back?
They're going to be okay. They're in Boston. This is a very, very this game is a long way from over. What's the live line is what I want to know. This is the stuff that I miss out on. In Arizona, it was incredible. I was able to live bet golf based on, like, before Jordan Spieth made a putt on 5, you were able to get him at plus 400. He makes the putt. He's like plus 150. It's crazy shifts that can happen in such a short amount of time. You're able to react to injury news. What is the live line at the moment?
The live line is Nets minus 165, Celtics plus 135. Mm-hmm. Can I make a case for why people shouldn't be betting these live lines?
Yes.
There's so much vig relative to normal games. So for instance, the spread right now is minus 3.5 and minus 115 on both sides right now on DK. We compare that to before the game starts, the spread is minus 110 typically on both sides. So you have to pay a lot of extra rake to bet games in game. The only time I think it makes sense is if it's an injury. Like, let's say we were to find out that Kyrie Irving was going to the locker room and it was a significant injury. We're watching the game. He's rolled his ankle. He's struggling to get to the locker room. That, I think, is actionable information. That's something where I go, oh, there is now value on the Boston Celtics side because the books have not been able to react to a Kyrie Irving injury. But if this is just like, hey, I'm just watching the game, I just think this team is going to win because it's what your gut feeling is, you're paying extra vig for that.
Well, that makes sense. But if you have one side of it, there's massive middling opportunities that can also exist. Like, if I'm pretty sure if I took the points with Brooklyn, I'd be okay finding some of that middle because there's such a double dip opportunity. Even if there is vig, I understand you always want to make the best bet for the time you can make the bet. And I totally understand that part of it too. But I don't know. There has to be opportunities, I think, where in basketball, it's a little bit hard because it's not like football where a dramatic event can happen. In golf, you can basically see a tee shot while it's in the air and have an opportunity to know, oh, that person is absolutely screwed. So there's certain sports, I think live betting still has a lot of utility. Basketball, just because it's kind of a little bit more of a progression, you get 2 and 3 points at a time. You know, if it's a free throw, yes, that was Duke saying hi to everybody there midway through. But I think that basketball is probably the most difficult to really exercise and find some kind of value out of.
Yeah. And to me, though, even if you're holding a good bet ticket, you don't bet the other side just to try to middle it or to mitigate your risk. Because to me, you're just giving away money in the long run. If you, let's say you were sitting on Nets plus 3.5 right now. I forget what this line was right when the game locked. I think it was plus 3.5. And I looked at the Nets right now and saw that they were minus 4.5. I wouldn't be like, oh, cool, I could lock in a win by betting the Celtics. I think you're probably just giving away equity at that point. Okay. The one, like I said, I think the spots you really want to bet, here's the number one that's going to happen most often. The injury is going to be one, but that doesn't happen all that frequently. Foul trouble does. And that is something the books do not immediately account for. So that's the one that I think you have the best opportunity on, as you see a key player, whether it be Karl Anthony Towns last night picking up early fouls, or Karl Anthony Towns the game before that picking up early fouls, or Karl Anthony Towns the game before that picking up early fouls. That's the spot where I think you can kind of look at the other side and be like, oh, okay, cool. It's the equivalent of finding out that one of the best players on the team is now playing, 6 less minutes in a game, and books just don't account for that immediately.
Yeah, that's sharp. So I like that way of looking at it. That's a little bit better because, for me, you look at some of the middle opportunities and it's hard to pass up while an NBA game's going on. But you wouldn't have an edge on that if people were good at coaching and kept certain players in with 2 fouls. But it seems as though that's still the recurring theme where a guy will pick up 2 quick ones, they go to the bench, and then you're in trouble. I will say that they at least tried. Oh, Brandon Bell just went yard now too. It's absolute Giants season. Jock Peterson was really the only guy I played a lot of. But Brandon Bell, welcome to the party. My God.
So looks like maybe I'll have some good stuff going on for the late baseball slate, because that was just crazy ownership, I think, between Bassett and the Giants there for that slate. But that aside, talking about the basketball perspective here and the foul trouble thing, last night, we're in the 4th quarter. The Timberwolves are down, I think it's 20 points to the Grizzlies. Cat picks up his 5th foul and they take him out of the game. For what? What are you saving him for? You take him out of the game. Like, you're already down by 20 points. There's no competitive game at the end without Karl Anthony Towns. Those are the types of spots where it's like, yeah, just play your guys more minutes. But you're going to take, all you're doing when you take Karl Anthony Towns out is you're intentionally fouling him out. The fear of somebody picking up 6 fouls, you can't play them. If you're taking them off the court because they have 5 fouls, you've essentially fouled them out.
Okay. Yeah, 100% agree with you. You just keep Karl Anthony Towns out there going. And even in close games and situations like that, I still think you just keep your best players on the floor, let them play through it, because eventually they're going to have to be back out there. And if they're playing with reckless abandon later on, maybe that's even more not advantageous for you is the right way of, I wanted to say disingenuous. That's not the right way of saying that.
Oh, Jordan Klein in chat saying, what's the best Nicolas Cage movie, Ghost Rider or National Treasure? First of all, Ghost Rider sucks.
National Treasure is the GOAT. That is such a GOAT movie. National Treasure is fire. First of all, I love history. I mean, you have everything intertwined. It's the same reason that I think the Da Vinci Code was just crack for a lot of people, is you involve history into some kind of like a chase to figure out the whodunit kind of situation of it. And then you have treasure hunting. By the way, National Treasure 2 shot in South Dakota, Mount Rushmore. That was like a big deal to us South Dakotans. People were going out to go watch that get filmed. But we had my bachelor party out there, got to take everybody out to the old Mount Rushmore, got to go see the lake. And one of my buddies who drove by, he goes, that shit's a National Treasure too. I was like, damn is, my friend, damn is. So it's good stuff.
Gone in 60 seconds is good. I mean, my answer was Con Air. I think Con Air is the right answer here. Good. Yeah, because that's an actual
the Steve Buscemi scenes where he's like,
it's a good movie.
It's cringe. It's incredible. Chills is the right word, not cringe.
You know what? Yeah, go ahead, Jordan. Zoolander.
Dodgeball, he's incredible.
It's Zoolander for me, though.
Nobody makes me bleed my own blood, you floor.
Yeah. I mean, it's those are both really good movies. By the way, what's the last movie he made? It's been a minute.
It's not.
The last movie he made was when the tennis player called him out in the grandstands, being like, "Do I tell him how to act? No, I don't." And then went back to go hit it. Kyrgios, the psychopath from Australia.
Is it not Night at the Museum? That's not his best work.
No.
No,
that'd be like saying Robin Williams' best work is being Teddy Roosevelt in Night at the Museum 2. Idiot. Get a take that matters. Come on now.
That also just might be Jordan. That also just might be Jordan's opinion.
Oh my God. Nolan Kelly and T. McBee have some great thoughts about this. This is.
You know what bugs me about Nicolas Cage? Other than the fact that somebody said Face Off before, just the dumbest concept for a movie ever. I think you and I have talked, for some reason, I think Face Off has come off like 3 times on Live Before Lock. But just the idea that he trades faces with John Travolta and none of their family members realize, the idea that he could just come home to his wife and because he has somebody else's face taped over his, she doesn't know the difference, is the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, at least in Mission Impossible, it's like on and you rip it off. And then it's dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun. Ready to rock.
It's just the idea that it would be like Eric and I could just change faces and I would just show up to like Duke and your wife and they wouldn't know that it's not you, or that you like, it's so ridiculous. So the concept of the movie bothers me. But here's the other Nicolas Cage thing just in general that I don't like. Now that we found out he's self-aware, because that movie that he's making right now with Pedro Pascal, where he just plays Nick Cage. Have you seen the trailer for this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So there's a Nick Cage movie coming out right now where he's just Nick Cage in the movie.
Oh yeah, no, I have no. This I thought you were talking about another movie he was doing. This movie has gotten phenomenal reviews, 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
So it's not anything bad about the movie. It's that I like the idea more that Nick Cage is some crazy person who's not self-aware. I don't like him being self-aware and being in on it.
Oh, well, that's really kind of a personal problem.
Yeah. I think it seems like a good movie. People enjoy it.
You'd be the contrarian one person who gave it, not fresh, that would make it a Rotten Tomato.
No. That's nothing aside. It's just that I like the idea of him being this totally insane, famous person actor who has no clue that he's a crazy person. I don't like I like him more as the idea that he's, the character that Andy Samberg used to play on the SNL news desk. Which also how we kind of knew that he's in on it, because he did that character with Andy Samberg next to him. And it's like, oh no, he knows that people think he's weird.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer him to just be some weird, like out there guy who's non-ironically collecting dinosaur bones and like dead bodies or whatever it is he's into.
Jordan Klein came up with the best one yet. What is Adam Sandler's best movie?
So there's so many different ways to look at this, because it's also because there's going to be ones that have sentimental value to me, like Happy Gilmore.
Yep, same.
But at the same time too, like Click is a really good movie, and I think that's the answer for what is the actual best movie. But it's not the one I enjoyed the most at the time I watched it, if that makes sense.
I think there's only one answer in terms of like what his best acting is, and in movie that I enjoyed. 50 First Dates. I think it is the perfect
blend.
Terrible
answer. That's a good one.
Jordan Klein. Thank you.
I was going to say
50 First Dates. But
what about Grown Ups?
Are you high? This is 420. Are you high? I'm gonna Chris Rock you, just like it's just what? That is so bad. Waterboy's so good. Water sucks. It really, really sucks. Waters.
But so I haven't watched those movies for a while. I think they would hold up just from a standpoint of I liked them when I was younger, and now I'm rewatching something that kind of makes me feel like I'm part of my childhood again. But I don't think those are actually like as good of movies as like Click is a movie that I really thought was good.
Click was a good movie. And there's sentimental value, but that was like a really strong screenplay. He didn't have to like act that phenomenally well. He's just like a dad who, does different stuff throughout. Like it's not some crazy out there like, oh, Adam Sandler did a great job acting. Like 50 First Dates, I thought his acting was like legitimately good in it. So his best movie, as well as it being a movie that I enjoyed watching.
So when you were a kid though, amongst the comedy movies, which of the Adam Sandler movies did you like the best?
Happy Gilmore. How could it not be?
Yeah, it was Happy Gilmore for me too. Now, well, Billy Madison was close though.
I had to hit a ball off Frankenstein's fat foot. I'm afraid he's right. Take a shot, Mr. Gilmore. It's just
actually, by the way, and while we're on the topic of Happy Gilmore, give us a like. Give us a subscription. Just taparoo.
Oh, that's not bad.
Give us a little taparoo. Like the button. Give us the like button. Just tap it. Just tap it. Tap it for us. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel before I forget about it.
Ease it on someone else. Okay.
Yeah. And so something else also as I've gotten older, because I like Norm Macdonald so much now. By the way, Celtics have cut the lead down to 6. Is Norm Macdonald being in those movies makes me enjoy them so much more.
What like day is it today? October? It's Nudie Magazine Day.
Adam Sandler was, when they were promoting, it was either Grown Ups or Grown Ups 2. They were on Conan. They were talking about when they did that scene in Billy Madison, and his character, I think, is Frank. I don't remember exactly, but it doesn't matter what the character's name is. It's kind of irrelevant to the movie. But Norm Macdonald never really acted in movies before. And they're doing the scene where he's sitting there, and they're the first scene they record, Adam Sandler and Norm Macdonald together. Adam Sandler reads his line and then just stares at Norm, who says nothing back, just blank face. And he's thinking like, okay, he's really taking his time to deliver his line. And then there's just a bigger pause. Ends up what happening is Norm got confused because the character's name is Frank and he is not named Frank.
That's pretty
He's just
hilarious.
like, who's Frank?
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah, he's just like, who's Frank?
Oh, that's crazy. Oh, no, it's not me. I'm Norm. Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll work on that. That's cool. Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that's
Duke's
what I
in on
thought
it.
too.
Duke's in on
Duke,
it.
Come here. It's time that you jumped up. We have 500. Yeah, we're at Duke's.
Yeah, like the video. Like the video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for Duke.
Come here, buddy.
While you're pulling up Duke, you guys should. Duke gets
Buddy.
bigger every time. Duke is like 50 pounds heavier every time I
This
see him.
guy.
I think he weighs 800 pounds now.
He knocked it over, but that's okay. We're ready to rock, aren't we, Dukers? How we doing?
He's also a lot more calm when he sits on your lap now.
Yeah, he used to be a psychopath.
Yeah,
but at
back
least-
in the day, he would sit on your lap and he'd immediately be like, I have to jump off of your lap and knock over everything on your desk and break all of it.
I mean, he still does that from time to time. The difference is now he's 55 pounds. And so like I'm more aware of him. Whereas before he was a little craftier. Oh, hang on, buddy. Hang on. You got to let me get this over you. There we go. Now we're in a good place. See, look at this little guy. Yeah.
All right. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for Duke. Also, something else, guys, go ahead and follow our new Twitter account at Awesemo Best Bets, where we're going to be giving away one bet per day from our premium betting Discord channel. And the bet that we have today is from Ben Rasa, Bucks minus 9.5. So Bucks minus 9.5. It looked like they were going to blow out the Bucks in game one of the series. The Bucks looked like they were going to blow out the Bulls. Ultimately, though, the Bulls did come back in the third quarter. But if we had to take any one game remaining from the playoffs that's going to be likely to be a blowout, it probably would be Bucks at home against the Bulls. While we're on kind of the outlook of some of these series right here, by the way, Nets pulled back ahead by 10 here right now on my screen. There is 648, 647, 646, and somebody just bricked a 3 from the corner. What do you make of the Devin
Bruce
Booker
Brown
injury?
just annihilating. My God.
Yeah. Yeah, just a dunk there in transition. What do you make of the Devin Booker injury? And how do you think if Devin Booker does not play the rest of the series, are the Pelicans live to win that series?
Yes, they are. I mean, I don't think Zion's coming back, so it's not even that. It's that CJ McCollum. People are like, oh, they're 10 games under 500. Not with CJ McCollum, they're not. It's just changed the complexion of this basketball team. They can space the floor. I think they have the right mix of players. And plus, Phoenix without their best player. I mean, that would be, it's just a crazy, crazy kind of situation that Chris Paul runs into this all the time, either his injuries or his teammates' injuries. It's just a terrible situation because the sum of the parts is greater than the sum of the whole, or you know what I mean? In terms of Phoenix, that's kind of the way that they operate. And this is just a bad luck situation. He's the main scorer, the main catalyst for this team. Find it very difficult to say, what would you set the series line at if Devin Booker doesn't play another game in this series?
Suns minus 250. I haven't done it mathematically. It's just off the top of my head.
Yeah, Suns 250, and that's good enough that I'm going to the Pelicans side.
What is the number right now?
That's a good question because I think it's got to be somewhere around that.
All right, series. I'm looking it up. I'm gonna check on.
Puts the floor for Duke. 115 pounds is the floor. 125 is the ceiling. I think 130.
That's a pretty
ceiling.
narrow window.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts how big this kid's getting. He's up.
What does the vet say? Do vets do that? Do they tell you how big they're going to be?
Yeah. So, I mean, his dad was 125 pounds. So I think that would be, that's a gigantic Bernese Mountain Dog, but he's more projected in the 115 range. He eats I'll tell you. So now that he's had 4 hickory smoked chicken jerkies over the last half hour to try to stay calm. He's not used to the 2-hour shows. I think it might be because he was great for the first hour and a half. And now he's just like, Dad, it's walk time. This is when we go on our walk.
It's time to do other things. Or maybe he's just anxious that the Celtics are losing.
Yeah. Kyrie Irving still not there. 6-4. We can wade through that. I mean, Bruce Brown, what an absolute smash for this magnificent human. All trying to find the series number here too. Sportsbook, NBA. And again, that's me saying if you knew that he wasn't playing in a game the rest of the series, what it would be. You basically are 1-1. It's home court advantage goes to New Orleans.
Suns minus 300 right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I think is accurate because you asked me if we knew that Devin Booker wasn't going to play, and he's only been ruled out for 2 games. He could play after. I think minus 300, that's fair enough.
Yep. I agree.
By the way, Jordan threw in 8 Crazy Nights. That is a movie that I did really like when I was younger as well. That was one I remember when I was in like elementary school, and my mom had a TV, had a car with like those little TVs in the back seats. And my brothers and I, we had like 3 movies to watch, and it was 8 Crazy Nights we had in the car. We had Dude, Where's My Car? I've probably seen the movie a million times. And then a Cheech and Chong movie. Those were all of the movies we had in my mom's car.
I'm with you. It's it's a great movie. Also, your parents are awesome. So we had that Suburban Once Upon a Time with the 2 TVs in it. And then my dad's like, oh, you're not looking out the window enough to recognize crops in South Dakota. And so we didn't get to have it anymore. He bought another car that didn't have the things in the back. So, thanks, Dad. Thank you. I had a GameCube in my TV or in my car once upon a time. I had a GameCube, and that had to go. No video games in the car. Are you kidding me?
Do you remember the show Pimp My Ride, where it was just exhibit and just people with absurd cars, where it was like, hey, look, you have a car, but it also has a fish tank and a popcorn maker in the back seat.
West Coast Customs. It's here in Burbank. I drive by it sometimes on the way to the Best Buy, and it exists. It's a real place in the world. Glorious place, I will add.
Well, that is going to bring us to the end of our time here. It's been an hour. We hung out. We had fun. Duke is totally over us doing the show. But guys, thank you very much for watching. On the way out, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with the rest of your lineups. If you have any questions at all, follow us on Twitter. Also, check out Eric's Twitter. He's doing a giveaway with the Prize Picks props that we did. Follow him, retweet his tweet, get a chance to win some free money. So good luck with that as well, at Eric Lindquist on Twitter. See you guys tomorrow.